subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Into a button, not to kill it. Magic can read the wizard's subconscious thoughts and maintain the life of the creature when it turns into a dead object. They don't need to breathe or eat. Even after 3 days, when the button turns back into a beetle, the latter's life state still remains at the moment of transformation. Of course, it is almost impossible for a transfiguration to last for several days. I see. Ivan understood. Magic power and mind. The latter makes demands. The former satisfies wishes. The reverse is also true. When a dead object becomes a living thing, where does the emotion and vitality of the living thing come from? Since magic power can give life to dead objects, it can naturally maintain life so that it will not suffocate or starve to death. Then, Professor, under what circumstances will the transformed things become ineffective? Ivan, a transformed product, we smash it, burn it, or melt it. Where is the boundary here? McGonagall thought for a moment, and she said, the boundary between living things and dead things is not quite the same. Professor Cat waved her wand and turned a piece of paper on the desk into a vivid owl. She was not annoyed by Ivan's question. On the contrary, Ivan's question also triggered McGonagall's thinking. It must be said that these are two questions worth exploring. Even a master of transfiguration like Professor McGonagall can get a lot of insights from it. Look, this is an owl made of paper. McGonagall cast a repulsive spell at the owl, causing it to stagger in the air and drop a large piece of down feathers. Coo! The owl screamed in panic and then fell to the ground. But soon, the owl stood up again and took off again. Interesting. Ivan understood the details that McGonagall wanted to show. The down feathers on the owl should be a hole with it, but it can fall off and it does not affect the transformation. Just like turning a glass of water into wine, it will not turn the wine back into water because a few drops of wine are spilled. This is different from the Gam transfiguration law, that the number of objects cannot be changed. The inability to change the number is a rule restriction during transformation. But after the transformation, because the state of things has changed, the paper has become an owl, and the owl can naturally breathe, eat, and drop feathers. Yes. McGonagall nodded in appreciation, and then cast a crushing spell from his wand, turning the owl in the air into a pile of confetti. As for the down feathers that had originally fallen, they disappeared at the moment the owl was crushed. This scene completely shocked all the little wizards present. They understood one thing, that is, never offend Professor McGonagall. Look at this decisive spell. Even if it is an owl that he transformed, it is killed at will. The courage and majesty of the Gryffindor lioness can be seen. The little lions trembled in front of the lioness. Ivan frowned slightly, thinking about the difference between crushing and repelling. Professor, can you turn to a plan again? Yes. McGonagall smiled. She knew that Ivan had noticed the key to the boundary of the transformation of living things. A piece of paper on the desk changed, and in the blink of an eye, it turned from a bud into a vine that continued to grow towards the ceiling. This magical transformation was eye-opening. Bang! Ivan was surprised for a moment, then raised his hand and cast a repulsive spell on the vine. Along with the scattering of green leaves, the whole vine was broken into 2 sections by Ivan, and the students could even see the light green juice flowing out of the broken part. Smashed to pieces, Ivan smashed half of the vine into pieces, turning it into countless pieces of paper. But what's interesting is that the remaining vine still maintained its transformation and did not exit the transformation state because the other half was destroyed. Chapter 47, The Secret of Transfiguration. Ivan's pupils shrank slightly, and he looked at McGonagall in disbelief and was even more shocked by Professor Cat's attainments in transfiguration. Is it because of the state of life, Professor? Ivan said. The owl was smashed, and in cognition it was dead. The vines were cut off, and even part of them were destroyed, but the rest can still survive. The survival here is not to linger, but to maintain the original state unchanged. The owl dropped feathers, but the feathers will grow back. So this damage will not break the state of transfiguration. But if the owl's wings are cut off, Although the owl can still survive, because it has lost the state of flying, the transfiguration will fail. Of course, this also depends on the transfiguration attainments of the wizard who cast the spell. Like Professor McGonagall, she has given the owl many states at the beginning of the transformation, which makes the owl's transformation extremely stable. Even if you chop the owl with a knife, it will reveal the internal flesh and blood organs, because the target of Professor McGonagall's transfiguration is a real creature. In contrast, in the hands of the little wizard, the owl they transformed may be turned back to its original form with just a casual touch. The attainment of transfiguration will affect the stability of the transformation. Ivan, in addition, as long as the state of the transformed product is changed, the transfiguration can no longer be maintained. You cut off the transformed vines, but as long as part of them still exists, they can grow back. To put it bluntly, it can still be understood as the embodiment of mind in transfiguration. Because you need it, your transformation can be successful. But when the transformed thing loses its proper function, the transfiguration will naturally be lifted. Just like a chair is for sitting, bread is for eating, and water is for drinking. Make the chair unable to sit. The bread that has been eaten cannot be eaten again, and the water that has been drunk has been drunk. At the moment of losing its function, the magic has fulfilled the wizard's wish. Then, Professor, what if the chair I conjured up is not a chair in my opinion, but a piece of wood that grows like that? Of course it is possible, McGonagall said. Since the needs of the two are different, the methods of cracking are naturally different. If what you need is a chair, then just saw off one leg and the deformation of the chair will be destroyed. On the contrary, if what you need is just a piece of wood that looks like a chair, to remove the deformation, unless you cast a spell to stop immediately, wait for the magic power to maintain the chair to be exhausted, and cast a counterspell, it is almost impossible to destroy its stability. To conjure up a stone wall for defense, our needs can be a wall, a complete stone, and the stone itself. The first two are relatively easy to crack. But if the wizard's needs are materials such as stone, then its stability is amazing. Since it is a stone, as a non-life, you can smash it into pieces. As long as the magic power is not exhausted, it will still be a stone after being crushed. Life transformation can be divided into animal transformation and plant transformation, and non-life transformation can be divided into consumable transformation and demand transformation. The sophistication of life transformation depends on the wizard's magical attainments. The higher the attainment of transfiguration, the more real and stable the life is. As for the transformation of non-living things, it is to meet the needs of wizards, such as drinks, food, tools, materials, etc. Once the consumables are consumed and the demand cannot meet the demand, the transformation will end. Do you understand, Ivan? Yes, Ivan said gratefully. Thank you for the answer, Professor. Any other questions? 2 more questions, Ivan said. Transfiguration can give material functions. To what extent can it do that? For example, turn a stone into a watch. If this is possible, then can wizards turn stones into a TV, a refrigerator, and a computer? Professor McGonagall does not understand TVs, refrigerators, and computers, but she knows about telephones. Transfiguration can make a phone, McGonagall said, and the phone that is made has the functions of power supply and communication. Good guy. Ivan once again confirmed the view that transfiguration is a universal magic. This even involves electrical signals. This is the part involved in demand transformation, and wizards call it subjective transformation. McGonagall. And if there is subjective transformation, there will naturally be objective transformation. Subjective transformation is easier to understand. When performing transfiguration, magic is used to analyze the structure of things. McGonagall. The more you know about something, the higher the success rate and efficiency of the transformation. Theoretically, if a wizard can understand the structure and material composition of nuclear weapons, he can even turn a nuclear bomb into a giant mushroom. You said the other way around, to make a nuclear bomb? This is impossible. Transfiguration cannot change the substance itself. This is the basic rule of transfiguration. Even if you can make a nuclear bomb or a bullet, they're still fake. In the words of Professor McGonagall, transfiguration can only change the state, not the nature of the substance. This rule cannot limit higher-level transfiguration. Ivan silently added in his heart. According to old Dumbledore, permanent transformation can achieve real changes. The defect of permanent transformation is that it cannot be transformed by magic. But this shortcoming is nothing in the Muggle world because airplanes, tanks, rockets, nuclear bombs, these things do not have magic and meet the standards of permanent transformation. So what is objective deformation? Objective deformation is limited by the outside world's cognition of things. In simple terms, it is how others judge that what you have transformed is that thing. For example, Ivan transformed an apple. How can outsiders believe that it is an apple? First, the appearance, then the touch, and the smell and taste. If these are the same as the feeling of a real apple, then outsiders will naturally think that this is a real apple. Similarly, suppose a stone is turned into a nuclear bomb. How do you judge whether it is a fake nuclear bomb? You certainly can't detonate it to see. This is impossible. And other various detection methods, whether it is metal detection, radiation detection, or other various particle collisions, you can conclude that it is real. Objective deformation is the deformation of various phenomena. Soon, Ivan extracted key information from the concept of objective deformation mentioned by McGonagall. To put it bluntly, objective deformation is a kind of sensory deception. Apples deceive people's five senses, and nuclear bombs deceive various detection instruments, making these dead objects mistakenly believe that they have received corresponding signals. However, these signals are all false and are just mental and statistical misleading. Chapter 48, the difference between shaping and deforming subjective transformation, starts from the wizard, using his own thinking to analyze things and make them change according to the wizard's ideas. Objective transformation is based on the wizard's understanding, giving the transformed object the ability to interact with the outside world. For example, Ivan has eaten a certain kind of ice cream and knows its taste, and then turns water into this kind of ice cream. In this process, the higher the wizard's thinking attribute, the larger the space he can operate, and the higher the precision of the transformation. The same is true for deceiving machine detection. Only by understanding the principles can wizards perform lifelike transformations. Just like McGonagall, she doesn't understand the various electronic devices of Muggles. So McGonagall can turn electronic devices into small animals, plants, and substances, but she can't turn stones into TVs. Even if she performs such a transformation, it is just an empty shell with the appearance of a TV, and the inside is similar to the Schrödinger state. Thinking. At this moment, Ivan fully understood the role of the thinking attribute. The greatest manifestation of this attribute in magic is in the transformation. The thinking attribute is a tool for exploring the world, calculating, analyzing, and understanding. If one day, Ivan mastered magic deformation and permanent deformation, coupled with a high enough level of thinking, he might really become a god who created everything. I have one last question, Professor. Ivan and McGonagall ignored the confused little wizard, and the only one who could barely hear was Hermione. However, Hermione could only understand what the two meant. But when it comes to magic, Hermione is completely confused. Can air be deformed? Professor McGonagall frowned slightly. She found that Ivan's question was indeed a little special. Tricky? That can't be said, because every question involves the foundation of transfiguration. Including this air deformation, it is also very important. No. McGonagall shook his head and said, transfiguration cannot transform air. What is wind? In Ivan's cognition, there are magics in the wizarding world that can summon wind, create clouds, fog, and storms. If air cannot be deformed, then what are they? Ivan, what you said is not transfiguration. McGonagall said, transfiguration is not a change of appearance, but a change of essence. If what Ivan needs is to change the shape of the gas, then it is not transfiguration, but magic similar to controlling elements, such as fire and water flow. The real air transformation should be to turn air into water, food, plants, and animals. However, these things, perhaps only gods can do it. I just said that transfiguration cannot change the number of objects, So how to distinguish this number? Have you ever thought about it? McGonagall looked into Ivan's eyes and said seriously, "We can't turn two apples that visit separately into one thing. Apples and apples. Is there really nothing between them? No, there is something that is air." Some people may think that the thing that separates matter is space. But in fact, the so-called separation of transfiguration has not reached the level of space. Just the separation of air has reached the limit. In addition, this also means that the wizard's transfiguration cannot transform a single molecule, such as an oxygen molecule or a water molecule. Ivan didn't know what the upper limit of transfiguration was, but the lower limit, bacteria and viruses aside, molecules and atoms are absolutely beyond the reach of ordinary wizard's transfiguration. After the transfiguration class, Ivan stood up and left. The little wizards around him made way and watched Ivan and Hermione leave. "What's wrong?" Ivan was stunned. He was not a lonesome person, but the little wizards were full of admiration, especially the little lions in the lion house. They almost regarded Ivan as the leader of the lion group and instinctively guarded him. Even the little wizards in the eagle house were impressed by the knowledge Ivan showed because of the questions and answers between Ivan and Professor McGonagall in class. So cool. Ronald and Harry also followed Ivan. Ronald was very envious, and he also wanted to be as majestic as Ivan. Harry hoped that Ivan could teach him a few spells. He didn't ask to be like Ivan. As long as he could cast one or two, Harry would be satisfied. "Ivan, you are so amazing." Following Ivan, Hermione excitedly talked about his conversation with McGonagall just now, with admiration in her eyes. The little witch, who was only 12 years old, regarded Ivan as her idol. "It's okay." Ivan said a few humble words. He saw Neville, who was a little timid, so he asked Hermione to come to their dormitory at night. He would continue to teach Hermione magic and, at the same time, hoped that she could teach Neville a few tricks. Although Neville was dull, he was born in a Longbottom family, and his wizard bloodline was definitely not weak. What he lacked was confidence and a head damaged by the forgotten curse. But this was not a big problem. Ivan valued Neville's simplicity and loyalty. Since he decided to become the White Devil, his own strength was needless to say, and the helpers and followers around him were also indispensable. Hermione and Neville were undoubtedly the two closest people to Ivan at Hogwarts. Can I do it too?" Neville was a little unconfident. Hermione quickly encouraged him. "Ivan is very good, Neville. You have to believe in Ivan's teaching level." Hermione felt that asking Neville to work harder was a bit too much. But he could be unconfident, but he couldn't distrust Ivan. Yeah, sure enough, Neville understood what Hermione meant and admired Ivan even more. At night, the three of them had dinner in the hall and went to Ivan and Neville's dormitory as agreed to exchange magic. According to the school rules of Hogwarts, girls can enter the boys' dormitory, but not vice versa. In addition, there are only two people in Ivan and Neville's dormitory, which can avoid a lot of trouble. Meow. On the dormitory floor, Yumi and Crookshanks were playing and fighting, while Leaf was hiding aside, staring at the door. However, with two big cats and raccoons by his side, the poor, weak, and helpless Toad had no chance to play its disappearing game. Ahem. Ivan placed 3 sofas and a table in the open space in the dormitory, and placed the textbooks for transfiguration, charms, herbology, and potions on top. "Neville, don't be nervous." Seeing that Neville was a little embarrassed, Ivan comforted him. "Hermione and I have held many study sessions. This is no big deal." "Yes, Neville." Hermione had a good impression of the shy boy, and with her and Ivan here, there was no reason that Neville couldn't be taught. Chapter 49. Hogwarts? Just my job market. Let's get started, Neville. Your goal is to master the first spell taught by Professor Flitwick in class, the illumination spell. Ivan picked out the basic spells in the textbook, and he carefully split them up and explained the principles of these magics and the tricks of casting spells to Hermione and Neville with his own understanding. The little witch was really smart. She wrote down every word Ivan said and occasionally asked immediately if she didn't understand something. Ivan found that Hermione's control of magic was very delicate. This was not will, but the embodiment of high thinking. However, Compared with Hermione, who understood it at once, Neville's situation was much more cruel than the two thought. It must be admitted that Neville really made Ivan feel the pressure of teaching. "Yes, I'm sorry, Ivan." Neville lowered his head, tears welling up in his eyes. "I'm really too stupid." 2:37. Ivan looked at the time. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. For 3 hours, except for the initial guidance of Hermione, Ivan spent almost all the rest of the time on Neville. Although this process also helped Ivan to find out the gaps, but not seeing the results for a long time still gave Ivan a headache. There's no reason. Ivan was not upset. He was very patient and did not dislike Neville's stupidity at all. The transparent light shield emitting faint light enveloped the three people, isolating them from the damage they might cause to the dormitory during the practice of spells. This was specially prepared by Ivan for Neville. Its prototype is the spell of Safeguard, and Ivan mixed it with the casting techniques of Armor Spell and Universal Protection. It is the most difficult self-created spell that Ivan has mastered now. He called it the Body Protection spell, also known as Exorcism and Body Protection. The upper limit of the Body Protection spell is not high, and it mainly wins in sustainability and operability. Just like now, Ivan divided the area for practicing spells into two pieces, like two bubbles colliding together. One side is Ivan and Neville, and the other side is Hermione. If not for this, Ivan would not be so confident and bold to let the two cast spells in the dormitory. "I need to think about it carefully. Neville, you should take a look at the herb class first." Ivan had no way to deal with Neville for the time being. He let the boy read books by himself, and Neville was not discouraged. He obeyed Ivan's arrangement very obediently. "What's the situation with Neville?" Hermione asked Ivan quietly. The latter frowned and said, "I feel that he should have been hit by a crude forgetfulness spell when he was a child, which damaged his thinking. What should I do then?" The little witch had learned from Ivan the 6 basic attributes he planned. Thinking includes reaction, body control, spell control, memory, and calculation. 4 points of thinking does not mean that all these items need to reach 4 points. In fact, if any data reaches 4 points, the thinking attribute can be counted as 4. Like Harry, Ivan thinks that he has a thinking attribute of 4 like Hermione. However, the two have different focuses. Harry's high thinking is reflected in his reaction nerves, which gives him an unparalleled advantage in Quidditch and fighting. Hermione's thinking is reflected in learning, but in terms of physical practice, she is no different from ordinary people. Let me think about it again. Ivan was helpless about Neville's problem. The only thing he was sure of was that Neville's qualifications were definitely not bad, and he had a promising future. The reason why he couldn't do it now was probably because he was too young and mentally immature. Try your best to help Neville lay a good foundation. Finally, Ivan made a decision. He would help Neville practice spell manipulation as much as possible to form muscle memory. There was nothing he could do about it. Neville's memory was really bad, whether it was memorizing or understanding. In this way, the three of them studied for a night. Although Ivan taught Hermione spellcasting skills most of the time, Neville also learned something. Well, at least before he forgot the knowledge, Neville felt that he had mastered it. So, he went to bed, and the next day, "Neville, hey, what did I master?" Ivan and Hermione were eating breakfast in the hall. They secretly held their foreheads and felt helpless about Neville's forgetfulness. Fortunately, neither of them was a quitter. They didn't dislike Neville's stupidity, which touched the shy boy very much. From childhood to adulthood, apart from his family, Ivan and Hermione were the best to him. Neville was not lacking in perseverance. He really worked hard to learn and listen carefully. However, his memory is too bad. He thinks he has memorized many things, but forgets them after a while. Neville can only repeat the study again and again to prevent Ivan and Hermione from wasting their time. In this class, we will learn how to turn a match into a needle. The Transfiguration class officially started, and the first thing they had to learn was how to turn a match into a needle. In class, Ivan didn't even use a wand. He just waved his hand and turned the match on the desk into an extremely thin silver needle. Not only that, Ivan also carved patterns on the silver needle bit by bit to make it more delicate. Beautiful transfiguration. Professor McGonagall noticed Ivan's performance at the first time. No wand, no sound, and meticulous casting. Even though McGonagall was mentally prepared, he was still shocked by Ivan's talent. Gryffindor gets 5 points for Ivan's outstanding performance. Soon, Hermione also completed the transformation of the Silver Needle after Ivan, and Professor McGonagall gave Gryffindor another 2 points for this. This incident made Professor McGonagall happy for half a class, until our blasting genius Mr. Seamus once again demonstrated his ability to turn all spells into explosive spells. Hold the wand firmly and imagine the shape of the needle you want to transform. Ivan sat in a row with Hermione and Neville, and on his other side were Harry and Ronald. At this time, Harry was asking Ivan for the technique of Silver Needle transformation. Ivan did not hide anything, and he explained the key to transfiguration to Harry very seriously according to his current level. I did it. After Ivan's instruction, Harry quickly mastered the trick. He picked up the match with only one end pointed and was overjoyed. "Thank you, Ivan. You are so amazing." The match became pointed, which seemed insignificant to Ivan, but was an extremely important first step for Harry. As for Ronald, well, I think you should change your wand. Ivan really couldn't teach Ronald anything. He had no ill feelings towards Ronald, nor did he have any good feelings towards him. So he said frankly that his problem was not himself, but the wand in his hand. The old wand was not compatible with Ronald's magic at all. In addition, Ronald's basic attributes were very mediocre, which meant that he was destined to have a hard time achieving great success. Chapter 50. The one Malfoy can't affair with Ivan is not without a solution, but he has no reason and will not help Ronald improve his attributes. Yes, improve attributes. During the days at Hogwarts, Ivan found a way to improve attributes in the library. Magic transformation. Magic transformation is an extremely advanced subject, which includes the knowledge of potions, spells, transfiguration, and black magic, and is an important way for ordinary wizards to become top wizards. However, magic transformation is extremely risky, and the survival rate is only 1 in 10, which is almost a gamble with life. Looking at the entire Hogwarts, Professors McGonagall, Flitwick, and Sprout have never performed magic transformation, and they are still ordinary wizards. For ordinary wizards, magic masters are the limit they can reach. Ivan, who has read the original book and the movie, knows very well that the gap between magic masters and real great wizards is a height that the former cannot imagine at all. No wonder the attribute reaches 5 points, and it will be evaluated as legendary. Ivan has magic eyes and spiritual vision, and a magic perspective gives him an unparalleled advantage in magic transformation. Unfortunately, Ivan did not find any books about magic transformation in the library. He thought that the relevant content should be hidden in the forbidden book area. I will not be able to do anything by myself in the future. The only people Ivan can trust now are Hermione and Yumi. This person and Cat are his confidants. Although the little witch is talented, Ivan can see at a glance the height she can reach in the future. At most, she will be at the level of Professor McGonagall and become a master of spells. But with me here, it should be no problem for her to go further on this basis. Ivan's plan is to study hard in Hogwarts for a few years. When the knowledge is accumulated enough, he will conduct experiments on small animals, and then Yumi. Unless the magic transformation is successfully completed on Yumi, Ivan will not joke with Hermione's life. Yumi, thank you so much. Okay, children, today's class is over. As Professor McGonagall announced the end of the get out of class, the little wizards put down their wands one after another. Ivan looked around and found that only he and Hermione could transform perfectly in the first class. The best of the others could only reach Harry's level, turning one end of the match into a needle. As for the majority, Ronald, Neville, and Seamus, the matches did not change at all. Next came the course that all the little wizards really looked forward to: defense against the dark arts. Ivan did not have much expectation for this. Sure enough, in the defense against the dark arts class, Professor Law's performance was almost a joke. The classroom where he taught was full of the smell of garlic. Everyone said that this was to drive away a vampire he met in Romania, fearing that the vampire would come back to catch him. He told them that his scarf was a gift from an African prince, who wanted to thank him for helping him get rid of the entanglement of the resurrected zombies. But no one could say whether they really believed the story he told. During this period, Seamus Finnegan also asked Professor Quirrell how he defeated the resurrected zombies. Quirrell's face flushed red, and he mumbled, talking about the weather and trying to change the subject. This guy is just like a fool. Ivan thought Quirrell might still think that his acting was good and fooled everyone in Hogwarts, including Dumbledore. But this poor acting was like writing the 4 words, "I have a problem," on his face. Voldemort has made himself stupid by splitting his soul, and now he finds such a guy to possess him. However, considering that Voldemort is in the forest of Albania and is almost desperate, it is not surprising that he is not picky about food. Ivan. After class, Hermione and Neville followed Ivan on the left and right, and the little witch complained, "Hogwarts' defense against the dark arts class is so disappointing." Hermione is a good student and generally does not disrespect teachers. But Quirrell's performance was really beyond her expectations. "Nothing strange," Ivan said calmly. "I heard that the defense against the dark arts class at Hogwarts was cursed, and the professor of this course cannot teach for more than 1 year. Is there such a thing?" Hermione widened her eyes, and Neville also showed a look of fear, as if there was something terrible about the defense against the dark arts class. "Don't worry. The curse doesn't work on students. It only targets professors." "That's scary too." Hermione was thinking whether to comfort Professor Quirrell. After all, he was in danger to teach them. "Well, although the teaching level is really not good." "Don't worry," Ivan said. "Since Hogwarts dares to recruit and Professor Quirrell dares to apply, there must be no problem. Hogwarts professors are not unable to resign. If they really can't do it anymore, Dumbledore can't let them go." The 3 of them walked and talked, and most of the time it was Ivan and Hermione who talked, and Neville just listened silently. By the way, Ivan thought of something and said to Hermione, "Let's keep a low profile in tomorrow's potions class." "What?" Hermione and Neville looked at each other, not knowing what Ivan meant. "You will know tomorrow." Ivan didn't say much and took the 2 to the library. They were going to borrow books and take them back to the dormitory to read slowly. The potions class was held in a basement classroom. 757, it was colder here than the main building of the castle above. Glass jars were placed along the wall, and the animal specimens soaked in them made you shiver. When Ivan brought Hermione and Neville to the classroom, there were already many people in the classroom. Most of them were Slytherin students. In the first-year potions class, Slytherin and Gryffindor took it together, and this was also Ivan's formal meeting with Slytherin students. Malfoy and his followers, Goyle and Crabbe, were together, and there was a short girl next to them. Ivan remembered that her name was Pansy Parkinson. "Look, who is this?" As soon as Ivan came, Malfoy noticed him, and he said in a gloomy tone, "You really stole the show, Ivan Ambrosius. Everyone says you are the most outstanding little wizard this year." Ivan raised his eyebrows. He stopped Hermione, who was about to speak, and said, "Malfoy, well, I don't really understand your thinking logic." The conversation between the 2 sides quickly attracted the young wizards who came to class. But no one wanted to intervene. Malfoy was born in an aristocratic family, a pure blood in the 1st grade, and basically regarded him as a place. Ivan was even more extraordinary. He was born in the Muggle world, but in just a few days, the magic talent that Ivan showed in class was enough to make all the young wizards look up to him. In a word, the 2 were not people they could mess with. Chapter 51, Harry Potter's first love brain. Malfoy was confused by Ivan's casual words. "What do you mean by, I don't understand your thinking logic?" Ivan didn't hate Malfoy. He was just a spoiled child. If he really wanted to say something too much, like Daly, who often bullied Harry, Harry would probably turn him into a maggot. "Don't you know the difference between us?" Ivan sat down not far from Malfoy. Seeing this, Hermione stepped forward and played the role of a follower fangirl. Neville looked at it. Although he was very scared, he still followed with courage. For a while, a long table was full of Malfoy, Goyle, Crabbe, Pansy, and Ivan. "What do you want to do?" Malfoy was obviously frightened by Ivan, and he thought of the scene of being beaten by Ivan on the train. Inexplicably, Malfoy regretted provoking Ivan. "My dad is a Hogwarts school director," Malfoy said timidly. If you..." Don't worry, I won't do it." Ivan patted Malfoy on the shoulder and smiled. "We are all classmates. There's no need to be so stiff, right?" Crabbe and Goyle were scared by Ivan, and Pansy had also seen Ivan's spellcasting ability when he entered school. Although she was obsessed with Malfoy, she was not stupid enough to go against Ivan. Of course, there would be no shortage of protection. A little girl in love, how could she tolerate the boy she liked being bullied? However, before Pansy could make any move, Ivan's eyes fell on her. In an instant, Pansy trembled all over, as if she fell into an ice cave and was stunned on the spot. But, shocking a little love-minded person, Ivan continued, "You have to understand one thing, Draco. In the wizarding world, magic is power." Ivan did nothing but stared at Malfoy's eyes silently. The invisible sense of oppression made Draco feel very stressed, and his subconscious provocation immediately disappeared. I know. Malfoy was scared. He didn't want to have another conflict with Ivan from the bottom of his heart. Think carefully. What is the contradiction between the two sides? Hermione? Mudblood? Muggle-born wizard? Let's not talk about Hermione's problem for now. Malfoy simply looked down on her. There is nothing he can do about it. The national conditions of the wizarding world are like this. Mudbloods have always been at the bottom of the contempt chain of wizarding society. Contempt, disdain, and bloodline theory. These things are unavoidable even in Ivan's previous life. Rich people look down on poor people. Those with good jobs look down on those with bad jobs. Those with beautiful, virtuous, and capable wives look down on those single dogs. Are you going to beat him up just because he looks down on you? Ivan thought, yes, I will definitely beat you up. If you don't have the strength, you can only endure it. But if your fist is big enough, what's the point of enduring it? So when Malfoy was against when Hermione said, "Mudblood," Ivan took action and taught this outspoken brat a lesson. You can think in your heart that Ivan has no right to interfere. But if you say it out loud, you are disgusting him. Magic is power. If you can't beat me, then you have to shut up and don't make trouble for yourself. Krunner. Malfoy was speechless by Ivan's aggressive attitude. He sat there with an extremely ugly face, but he didn't dare to lose his temper with Ivan, so he could only bear it. When Harry and Ronald came, they saw this scene. The four Malfoys sat in the corner, and on the other side of him, Ivan, Hermione, and Neville were flipping through the textbooks of the potions class. What happened? Soon, Harry and Ronald learned what happened before from Seamus. I heard that Malfoy was going to make trouble for Ivan, but before he could make a move, Ivan made him admit his weakness with a few words and even distanced himself from Ivan. This news made Harry and Ronald very excited. Unfortunately, before the two of them could be happy about this, a black figure came from the door of the classroom with pressure. Ivan looked back and saw that the man was wearing a black robe and cloak. He was tall and slender, with straight hair, cold and deep eyes, and a sallow complexion. He looked like a huge black bat. Severus Snape, the most talented wizard in the entire Harry Potter series, except for Dumbledore and Voldemort. He inherited his mother's talent for potions and had the magical attainment of improving spells as soon as he entered school. To be honest, if it weren't for Lily, Snape might not have been able to become a great wizard. What a pity. This was the first time Ivan saw Snape after the opening dinner. As soon as the dean of the Snake Academy appeared on the stage, he brought a great sense of oppression to the young wizards. Snape stood on the stage, picked up the list, and began to call the names, and then stopped when he called Harry's name. At this time, Harry didn't know what kind of targeting he was about to face. It started Harry Potter's famous scene. Ivan was calm and had no intention of helping Harry. After all, to put it bluntly, this matter was the sin of Harry's father. It is said that the hatred of having one's wife stolen is irreconcilable. It was remarkable that Snape could hold back his anger when he saw Harry, who looked like James Potter. The beloved goddess was robbed by the rogue, yellow-haired man. In order to protect the goddess, he chose to become a double agent, silently giving without asking for anything in return. After the goddess died, he used his life to protect her and the yellow-haired man's son, especially the goddess' son, except for the pair of green eyes. He looked almost exactly like the yellow-haired man. It's so FG amazing. Thinking of this, Ivan couldn't help but admire Snape, who really deserved to be the first love brain in the Harry Potter series. Strong, really strong. You really deserve to be the first real man in the wizarding world. What did you say, Ivan? Hermione heard Ivan mutter a word there, but she didn't hear it clearly, so she asked. Oh, nothing. Ivan didn't explain, but just praised casually. I'm just feeling that our potions professor is very good. Really? Hermione didn't ask any more questions. She believed Ivan's words and had great expectations for Snape's teaching level. Very good, very good. At this time, Snape raised his head and looked from the list to Harry. Harry Potter. This is our new famous person. Malfoy and his friends Crabbe and Goyle covered their mouths with their hands and laughed. Seeing Harry being treated strangely, Malfoy's anger from Ivan dissipated immediately. Sure enough, I shouldn't have provoked Ivan. Malfoy, is Harry not attractive anymore? Or did Scarhead surrender? At this moment, Malfoy made up his mind. The source of his happiness still has to be Harry Potter. Chapter 52 Snape. There's something wrong with this kid, Ivan Ambrosius. Hearing Snape call his name, Ivan nodded slightly towards him, his attitude neither humble nor arrogant. Another celebrity. Snape didn't say much. He called the names and then looked up at the whole class. His eyes were dark, and the indifference and emptiness in them made people think of two dark tunnels. You are here to learn the precise science and strict craftsmanship of potion preparation. Snape's voice was almost slightly higher than a whisper, but everyone heard every word he said. His aura was very strong. Just standing there, he could easily keep the classroom in order. Since there is no silly waving of wands here, many of you will not believe that this is magic. I don't expect you to truly appreciate the beauty of the simmering crucible with white smoke and fragrance. You won't really understand the magical power of the liquid flowing into people's veins, which makes people excited and confused. I can teach you how to improve your reputation, brew glory, and even prevent death. But there must be one thing. That is, you are not the kind of idiots I often meet. After he finished his short opening remarks, the whole class was silent. Harry and Ronald raised their eyebrows and exchanged glances. Hermione Granger almost moved to the edge of the chair and leaned forward, as if eager to prove that she was not an idiot. Only Ivan was still calmly waiting for Snape to get angry. He knew the other person's character very well. With Harry in front of him to attract fire, Ivan just had to watch the show silently. Snape didn't hate celebrities. He just hated Harry Potter. Potter. As Ivan expected, Snape asked impatiently, "What will I get if I add Narcissus root powder to wormwood infusion?" What wormwood root powder to what solution? Harry glanced at Ronald, who was stunned like him. Hermione, who was sitting next to Ivan, subconsciously wanted to raise her hand, but the little witch suddenly remembered Ivan's warning. Ivan. Hermione looked at Ivan, who shook his head slightly at her. So, resisting the desire to answer and get extra points, Hermione could only turn her eyes to Harry and wait for his answer. I don't know, sir. Harry had no idea what was going on. He could feel Snape's malice, and he didn't like this dark and cold professor whose hair seemed to have never been washed in his life. TSK, TSK. Group Snape curled his lips contemptuously. It seems that fame doesn't mean everything. Let's try again. Snape. Potter, if I asked you to find me a stone, where would you find it? Harry was silent again. He didn't know what a stone was. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, who were sitting not far away, were laughing so hard that they were shaking all over. Especially Malfoy. If he hadn't cared about Snape's face, he would have immediately sprayed Harry. I don't know, Doctor. I don't think you've ever read a book before the start of the school. Right, Potter? Harry forced himself to stare straight into his cold eyes. When he was at the Dursleys, he did read all the books. But could Snape ask him to memorize the contents of 1,000 magical herbs and fungi? Is this something a human can do? Hermione. Yes, I can. Potter. Then tell me what the difference is between Aconitum naviculatum and Aconitum camigasum. I don't know. This blatant targeting made Harry angry. He stared at Snape unwillingly, and the latter looked at the emerald green eyes with nostalgia in the light. Just thinking of this annoying face similar to that guy, Snape was furious. How could this happen? Hermione really couldn't stand it anymore. She whispered in Ivan's ear, "Does he have a grudge against Harry? Harry Potter is the savior of the wizarding world. I don't know how many wizards and witches will give respect and gratitude when they see Harry. However, Snape's attitude really made Hermione confused. Is he jealous of Harry? Is it true? You answer it. Snape heard Hermione's doubts. He looked back like a venomous snake and asked Hermione to answer his questions. Puff. Seeing this scene, Ivan couldn't help laughing out loud. For a moment, the whole audience was silent. Even Snape frowned. Sorry, Professor. Ivan coughed lightly. I thought of something happy. Ivan really didn't expect Snape to cause trouble for Hermione. Professor. Hermione saw this, fearing that Snape would point the finger at Ivan, and quickly replied, Narcissus root powder and wormwood can be combined to make a very effective sleeping pill, which is a dose of life and death water. Coprolite is a kind of stone taken from the stomach of a goat, which has a very strong detoxification effect. As for Aconitum naviculatum and Aconitum wolfsbane, they're the same plant, also known as wumai. Hermione's answer was almost exactly the same as the description in the potion class. Snape seemed a little dissatisfied with this. He didn't know much about Hermione's situation, but he heard from other professors that this year there was an amazing little wizard, Ivan, who was a descendant of the legendary Merlin. Tot. In this regard, the general public in China sneered. It's just a boring myth. So, Snape, who failed to get back his face, asked Hermione a few more questions. The little witch answered very fluently, and she gave the standard answer almost as soon as Snape asked. It seems that compared to some people, the witch lady who can memorize the whole book is better. Snape said sarcastically, at least in rote memorization, it is worth learning for some people. This made Hermione, who was originally waiting for Snape to add points, very unhappy. Unfortunately, the little witch was not good at contradicting the professor. Sit down. Snape asked Hermione to sit down with dissatisfaction, and he glanced at Ivan, who seemed to be watching a show. He didn't like Ivan's eyes. However, for some reason, Snape was reluctant to provoke this strange little wizard. He couldn't explain this feeling. It was like a poisonous snake smelling the scent of a beast and knew that the other party was very difficult to mess with. It was not worth it to confront it when there was no benefit. Chapter 53, Harry's Invitation. Why didn't you write it down? After staring at Ivan for a few seconds, Snape finally gave up on bothering Ivan and turned around to scold him in a low voice. Then, there was a rustling sound of quills and parchment being fumbled in the classroom. Potions class continued, but the situation of the Gryffindor students did not improve. Snape divided them into groups of 2 and instructed them to mix a simple potion to treat boils. Snape dragged his long black cloak around the classroom, watching them weigh dry nettles and crush snake fangs. Almost all the students criticized him. The few who were spared were Malfoy and the group of Ivan and Hermione. Malfoy was Snape's favorite student, and Ivan did a perfect job. Even Snape could not find fault with it. It was a pity that even though the two performed so well, Snape still didn't look at them more. Is it because we didn't make any improvements? Ivan didn't care about it. He had to admit Snape's teaching level, that really broke down the steps of making the potion and crushed it. It's not an exaggeration to say that it was poured down the throat by the students. Just like Snape said, as long as you are not stupid, you can't fail to make the potion he prepared. Of course, if a student can make improvements and handle the materials in a better way, Snape will not be stingy with praise. He is not the kind of teacher who makes students follow his instructions, learn and apply, and draw inferences from one example. Snape himself came this way. Dai-ta. Suddenly, a puff of acidic green smoke came out of the underground classroom, and there was a loud hissing sound. Ivan turned his head and saw that Neville, who was in the same group with Harry not far away, had burned the crucible into a crooked piece of thing. The potion in the crucible splashed onto the stone floor, burning holes in the shoes of several students around. Within seconds, the whole class stood on the stools, and when the crucible was overturned, the potion inside began to splash out. Idiot! Snape roared and was about to wave his wand, but he heard a disappear. In an instant, all the potions disappeared without a trace. Snape was stunned for a moment, and he looked at Ivan, who put away his wand. He wanted to praise him, but he suppressed his words. I think you probably put the porcupine quills in without taking the crucible off the fire, right? Neville was startled, But fortunately, Ivan helped, and he was not sent directly to the school hospital like in the original book. However, Neville escaped, but Harry still could not escape. Potter, why didn't you tell him not to add the porcupine quills? Snape, do you think he's good just because he made a mistake? Gryffindor lost a point because of you. Harry was completely confused, with an expression of who am I? Where am I? What am I doing here? On his face. Don't mess around. Seeing that Harry was about to argue with Snape, Ronald kicked Harry under the table. I heard that Snape is particularly unreasonable. Helpless, Harry could only stare at Snape angrily. But who would have thought that Snape didn't need a reason to target him? Dissatisfied with the professor's admonition, Gryffindor lost another point because of you. This point deduction is similar to blowing the boss mouth. Harry wanted to strangle Snape to death at this time, saying that he had never seen such an unreasonable person. Slytherin, from the dean to the little wizard, is really not a good person. See, on the other side, Ivan and Hermione brewed the potion that Snape requested. Don't get involved in the future, you will get into trouble. But Hermione still wanted to know why. Why did Snape target Harry? Do they have a grudge? It's a long story. Ivan smiled slightly. I'll tell you slowly when I have time. Professor, Ivan raised his hand. We've brewed it. The finished product of the two was excellent, and even Snape couldn't find any fault with it. However, Snape did not give them any extra points. It seems that sometimes fame is not without merit. Snape, at least you and Miss Memorize have done a good job in following the rules. This kind of differential treatment really made Hermione very angry. Hermione has never met such an annoying teacher. If it weren't for Ivan, Hermione would have achieved the first achievement of contradicting a professor in her Hogwarts career. Thank you, Ivan. After class, Neville went to the cafeteria with the two of them, and he thanked Ivan on the way. If Ivan hadn't intervened in time, Neville felt that he might have been stained with the potion that could melt the floor. By then, a trip to the school hospital would definitely be inevitable. Neville, potions class is indeed a bit difficult for you. Ivan told the truth. Your memory is so bad that it's easy to forget the steps of making potions and mix up the potions. Ivan had no way to deal with this. The only thing he could do was to let Neville take turns teaming up with him and Hermione in the future potions classes. There are two top students who will guide Neville step by step. If you don't have enough talent, you can make up for it with hard work. It is said that practice makes perfect. Ivan's teaching philosophy for Neville is to practice. Practice until it becomes like instinct and forms a conditioned reflex. I know. Neville is very obedient. He knows that Ivan is doing this for his own good, so he cherishes this opportunity very much. After lunch, Ivan and Hermione are going to the library to return books and borrow some new ones. Ivan, they met Harry and Ronald. Harry said, Hagrid invited me to his cabin. Do you want to go and see it together? Hagrid, due to Ivan's intervention, Hermione's relationship with the two is average. Because they didn't have much in common, her first impression of Hagrid was the giant she met when she just got off the train. Yes, Harry, Hagrid lives on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. He invited me to have afternoon tea. Thank you. Ivan did not refuse. He did not know why Harry invited him, but this kindness came from the heart, through the perspective of magic. Ivan could clearly feel the emotional fluctuations of everyone, especially their views on him. For example, Dumbledore is a kind old man who cares for his juniors, and Hermione is admiration and attachment. Ronald and most of the little wizards envy Ivan, but also have a little jealousy and awe. As for Harry Potter, he also envied Ivan, but without any jealousy, but curiosity and gratitude. Ivan could see Harry's desire to be friends with him. Pure and beautiful, it really deserves to be the protagonist of a fairy tale. Ivan secretly gave Harry a good evaluation, and then gladly accepted his invitation. It's my honor. In addition, does Hagrid have a limit on the number of people who go to his place? I mean, Ivan gestured to Hermione beside him, and the little witch's face was full of curiosity. Of course, Harry said enthusiastically. I think Hagrid must want the smartest little wizards and witches in our school to visit him. After leaving the Dursleys, Harry became more tactful. Language is an art. The phrase, the smartest little witch, really made Hermione very happy. You know, this is what Harry Potter, the savior of the wizarding world, said. Hermione hates Ronald, but has a good impression of Harry. If Ronald can disappear, Hermione welcomes Harry to join their team. Anyway, in one sentence, Ronald, get out. Stay away from my Ivan. Chapter 54 Ivan. It's time to give Snape some strength soon. It was 5 minutes to 3 in the afternoon, and the four of them left the castle and walked across the grounds to Hagrid's residence. Hagrid lived in a small wooden house on the edge of the Forbidden Forest, with a crossbow and a pair of rubber boots in front of the door. When Harry knocked on the door, they heard a tense struggle and a few low barks from the house, followed by Hagrid's voice. Stand back, Fong, stand back. Hagrid opened the door a crack, revealing his big, bearded face. Hagrid was surprised to see 4 young wizards standing at the door. But thinking that Harry could make friends at Hogwarts, Hagrid immediately smiled with relief. Wait a minute. Stand back, Fong. He let the 4 people in, while desperately grabbing the collar of a huge black hound. The cabin had only one room. Ham and pheasant were hung on the ceiling, water was boiled in a copper kettle in the brazier, and there was a big bed in the corner with a quilt made of rags. You're welcome, Hagrid said, letting Fong go. Fong immediately jumped towards Ronald and licked his ear. Like Hagrid, Fong was obviously not as fierce as it looked. This is Ronald. Harry introduced Hagrid to his first friend at Hogwarts. Another Weasley brother? Hagrid said, glancing at Ronald's freckled face. I spent almost half of my life to drive the twin brothers out of the Forbidden Forest. On the other hand, I was very ladylike. She did not dislike the mess of Hagrid's hut, and sat on a round stool prepared by Hagrid very naturally, and then waited obediently for the busy Hagrid to bring the rock skin cakes and tea. Oh, a cute little witch. Hagrid laughed and said, don't be restrained. This is not Professor McGonagall's classroom. Be natural, Hermione. Ivan looked around Hagrid's room, his eyes sweeping over the things that seemed to be randomly piled up like junk. Aren't you curious about what's in the Forbidden Forest? Hagrid is an expert on the Forbidden Forest. No one in Hogwarts knows the Forbidden Forest better than him. Hagrid found that Ivan was very much to his liking. I remember you, the little guy who could cast his own spells right after entering school. I have never seen a little wizard as talented as you. Ivan accepted Hagrid's praise. He took in all the objects around him and exclaimed, Hagrid, how did you do it? I mean, these things. Everyone looked at what Ivan pointed at, and Harry and Ronald were both in the same boat. Hermione was also puzzled because she only saw a room full of garbage. You guys. Ivan shook his head helplessly. He sat next to Hermione and picked up the milk tea prepared by Hagrid. When he just entered Hagrid's hut, Ivan felt the fluctuation of magic power around him. He used his magic eye to scan casually. Wow. A room full of precious magic materials. Not to mention anything else, just the animal skin used by Hagrid as a carpet came from a unicorn. You know, a unicorn's tail hair is worth 10 gold galleons. Although this carpet is not all unicorn's tail hair, it also has a strong alchemical value. It is no exaggeration to say that with this room full of magic materials, Hagrid is definitely one of the richest people in Hogwarts. Is there anything you like here, little Ivan? Hagrid was very happy that Ivan had this insight. He happily shared his love and passion for magical animals with Ivan. Similarly, Hagrid also said that as long as Ivan liked something in this room, he could use it at will. Ivan naturally declined politely. The things are good, but you can't accept them without merit. It is said that the hardest thing to repay is favors. Moreover, Ivan really doesn't need these precious magic materials now. That's a pity. Hagrid really doesn't care about these, but since Ivan refused, he won't persuade him anymore. In the following time, Hagrid promoted his special rock cakes to the 4 people while listening to the 4 little Lou teachers talking about their lives in the first week of school. When they first arrived at Hogwarts, everyone encountered a lot of new and interesting things. Harry told Hagrid about Snape's class. Hagrid, like Ronald, told Harry not to worry because Snape had almost never liked any students. But he seems to really hate me. Nonsense. Hagrid, why should he hate you? But Harry always felt that Hagrid was deliberately avoiding his gaze when he said this. How is your brother Charlie? Seeing that Harry wanted to continue asking questions, Hagrid quickly turned the topic to Ronald. I like him very much, He has a good way with animals. Crack. Ivan struggled with a rock cake for a while, and finally found that this thing was indeed not suitable as food. It was hard to chew, and it couldn't be soaked. He didn't understand what Hagrid's purpose was in making this. This thing is so hard that it can be used to build walls. Ivan, seeing the little witch looking at him for help, Ivan glanced at Hagrid, who was focusing all his attention on Ronald, and moved his fingers slightly. The next moment, the rock cakes in the hands of the two immediately became smaller, and then, under the effect of the floating spell, all fell into Ivan's pocket. Seeing this, Harry's emerald eyes were full of pleading. Ivan smiled helplessly, and Harry also solved the problem of rock cakes. Because the topic was his brother Charlie, Ronald did not notice the little movements of the three. So, only Ronald's world was completed. Oh, soon, Hagrid found the empty plate. You actually? He was so excited. For so many years, Hagrid has never met anyone who loves rock cakes as much as he does. What? Ronald was full of confusion. He didn't know what happened. It's only a few words, and Ivan and the others have broken 3 plates of rock cakes? I knew it. I knew someone would like it. Hagrid's eyes were filled with tears, as if he had found a close friend. You must not be full, right? I'll get more for you. Looking at Hagrid's attitude, I'm afraid he will stuff all the rock cakes into their mouths today. Ivan, Hermione, and Harry immediately said in unison, No, we're full. Really, Hagrid said that he didn't have much else here, but he would definitely have enough rock cakes. Really, Harry, I hiccup, we really can't eat anymore. This time, even Hermione nodded in agreement. She lied. But rock cakes, if you don't lie, do you really have to eat them? Hagrid, what is this? In order to prevent Hagrid from continuing the topic of rock cakes, Harry found a small piece of paper under the teapot warmer, which was a report cut from the Daily Prophet. Latest report on Gringotts break-in. Investigations into the July 31st break-in at Gringotts are still ongoing, and it is now generally believed that it was the work of an unknown dark wizard. The goblins at Gringotts reiterated today that nothing was stolen and that the underground vault searched by the intruder had in fact been emptied earlier that day. A Gringotts goblin spokesperson said this afternoon, We have no information on what is in the vault, and it is best not to interfere with this matter. Harry remembered Ronald telling him on the train that someone tried to rob Gringotts, but Ronald did not tell him the specific date. Hagrid, Harry said, the day of the Gringotts break-in happened to be my birthday, and it is very likely that we were there when it happened. Ivan knew that this was Voldemort trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone, so he broke into Gringotts. He calmly drank a sip of milk tea and did not show any interest in the matter. Hermione saw his reaction. The little witch, who was already familiar with Ivan's habits, immediately realized that this report was not that simple. She just sat down obediently and said nothing. Oh, just a little thing. Hagrid was perfunctory throughout the whole process, obviously not wanting to reveal information about the Philosopher's Stone. After leaving Hagrid's cabin, the four walked back to the castle for dinner. Their pockets were full of rock cakes. Out of politeness, they were embarrassed to refuse. Along the way, Harry was very quiet. Obviously, he was still thinking about the theft of Gringotts. In addition, Harry felt that Hagrid must know something about Snape, but was unwilling to tell him for some reason. Ivan. Suddenly, Harry saw Ivan walking in front, holding hands with Hermione. At this moment, Harry seemed to see the hope of solving the mystery. Yes, he couldn't understand. That was because he was not smart enough. But Ivan and Hermione, they are recognized as the smartest first-year wizards. Harry never thought he was very powerful. It is normal to not understand some difficult problems and troublesome things. And if you don't understand, you can ask. There are 2 little wizards who know everything in front of you, so why hesitate? What's wrong, Harry? Ivan turned around with a smile. He knew that Harry had doubts in his heart. It's just that some things are not suitable for him to talk about. Harry did not hide his thoughts and told the host present about his thoughts and the fact that Hagrid went to the 713 vault to get something that day. The smell of trouble. Hermione's excellent sixth sense detected trouble. She is indeed very brave and eager to prove that she is no worse than other wizards. It's just that this matter involves Dumbledore, and the little witch doesn't think she has the ability to deal with such a big thing. So Ivan could see that Harry trusted him very much. He really regarded himself and others as friends. What do you want to know? Harry looked at Ivan with a mysterious smile. He was stunned for a moment and then asked, He wanted to ask what was in the vault, why someone would steal this thing, and whether it was safe now. Just thought about it. What does this have to do with him? After being pointed out by Ivan, Harry immediately realized his own weight. This is not something he can get involved in. I want to know, why is Snape targeting me so much? Compared to the treasures in the 713 vault, Harry felt that this matter was more important and closely related to himself. Ivan nodded slightly. He was very satisfied with Harry's self-knowledge. According to Ivan's plan, the Little Wizards of Hogwarts are extremely important talent reserves and loyal teams that can truly cultivate feelings. Hermione is, of course, the future Minister of Magic. Neville, the Gryffindor Sword Master, the Professor of Hogwarts Herbology, his potential is also not weak. There is also Harry and Luna, who is not yet enrolled. Especially Harry Potter. He definitely has the potential to be independent. If you ask who among these little wizards can charge for Ivan in the future and be the first to fire the first shot, it must be Harry. After all, no young wizard can tie with Voldemort in the 4th grade and kill the most terrifying dark wizard in England in the 7th grade. Plot killing, Dumbledore's calculation. These must have happened, but Harry can do these, which proves his talent. Hermione is Ivan's think tank, and Harry is even more powerful. Now is the time when the two are the most ignorant. Ivan can take action in advance and recruit the two to his team. Well, Hermione has been taken. Next, it's Harry's turn. I do know something. Ivan blinked at Harry and said, I'm a natural prophet magus, and I can see some pictures of the future, but this description is not complete. In fact, not just the future. Hearing this, Harry's eyes suddenly lit up. Ivan, can you see the past? Ivan nodded, although it's just some very fragmentary fragments, and it must be extremely important to a person equivalent to a turning point in fate. But I did see some very interesting pictures. These words are not Ivan deceiving Harry, but it is true. After the soul attribute broke through 5 points, Ivan's control of prophecy became more handy. He can watch the past and future of anyone at any time as needed. You can also predict the crises you will encounter in the future, or even ways to avoid some bad luck, just like making a wish. Fate is an extremely terrifying force in this world. Ivan said before that the results of the prophecy will definitely happen and cannot be changed. However, being unable to change does not mean that it cannot be avoided. For example, Ivan saw that Harry would fall down the magic stairs. He could not change this matter. It was destined to happen. But falling down is just a process, and its follow-up, results, and even the cause of the fall are all unknown. In this way, Ivan has a lot of room for operation. For example, let Harry perform a scene in the prophecy by himself and deliberately fall down. Or after Harry falls down, add a result that Ivan casts a floating spell and catches him. This is to exploit the loopholes of the prophecy by supplementing the cause and effect, turning something that is obviously bad into a farce and a small trouble. The past has long been destined, and the future can still be mediated. Ivan didn't care whether Harry could understand it. He just summarized his understanding of the magic of prophecy and fate. Ivan, what did you see? Snape knows a girl. Before entering Hogwarts, they were best friends. Ivan just told Harry what he saw and did not tell the girl's identity. Later, Snape was sorted into Slytherin, and the girl went to Gryffindor, so the relationship between the two became distant. The 3 children listened to Ivan's story carefully and were very curious about the girl's identity. Although they were young, the 3 children understood this kind of Snape gossip almost immediately. Then what? The 3 children could not imagine that a person like Snape would actually have someone he liked. Ivan did not say it directly, but looked into Harry's eyes. The girl got together with another person and had a child with him. At this point, Ivan's hint was obvious. Snape likes Mom. Harry was confused. He originally just wanted to eat Snape's melon, but he didn't expect to eat the melon himself in the end. But why? Hermione didn't understand. Since Snape liked Harry's mother, why did he target Harry? Is it because of love turning into hate? Well, Ivan felt that he had said enough. Although he could directly use glass, crystal balls, and other reflective objects to show the predicted scenes, so that the three little ones could see what happened more directly. But it was about Snape's privacy. Ivan would not do such a ridiculous thing without the consent of the person concerned. Joking was one thing, and Harry did have a right to know. So Ivan told Harry about Lily. But Snape's dark history, such as being almost bitten by Lupin and turned into a werewolf, being bullied by the four people who took the initiative to cause trouble with the hanging bell, and finally hugging Lily's body, vowed to protect Harry, and so on. Chapter 55. Voldemort was killed by the plot. I can only say that Snape didn't hate you because of your mother. On the contrary, he loves you and loves your mother. Ivan, Snape cares about you, especially your eyes, which are exactly the same as your mother's. Harry was a little speechless. After thinking carefully, he found that Snape's attitude towards him was indeed very similar to what Ivan said. It seemed to be targeted, but it was actually a different kind of attention. After understanding that Snape's special treatment was not because of his reputation as a savior, but because of his mother, Harry was able to accept it. It was just that Snape was thinking about his mother, which made Harry feel weird. No, is there something wrong here? Hermione quickly discovered something wrong. Since Snape likes Harry's mother, why is he targeting Harry? Well, good question. Ivan shrugged and smiled. If Harry was a girl, I can guarantee that Snape would never have this attitude. Suddenly, Hermione realized, is it because of Harry's father? My father. Harry had never seen his parents and had a vague feeling about them. Isn't it? Hermione explained. Ivan said that loving someone means loving their whole life, but he only mentioned that your eyes look like your mother's. What about the rest? Yes, what about the rest? Only your eyes look like your mother's. So wouldn't the rest look like your father's? Is that so? Harry's eyes widened, and he looked at Ivan, hoping that he could give him some clues. Their relationship is not very good, or rather, very bad. Ivan felt that this matter did not involve Snape's privacy, and said bluntly, when Snape saw you, it was like seeing your father. It's just because of this. Harry was stunned. He didn't know the truth, and now he just wanted to call Snape a lunatic. In Harry's opinion, his parents were a couple, and it was unreasonable for Snape, an outsider, to target him because of this. Everything has a cause and an effect. Ivan felt that he had revealed enough, but the effect didn't seem to be as good as he thought. Harry hated Snape even more, especially after knowing these old stories. Harry felt that he had to fight Snape, the bad guy who coveted his mother, to the end for his father's dignity. Seeing that Harry had a tendency to challenge Snape, Ivan smiled helplessly. Ivan said a few good words for Snape, which was considered to be a platform for Snape, saying that he simply didn't like you and had no other ideas. In this Hogwarts, anyone can hurt Harry except Snape. Ivan hoped Harry could remember this. I know, although Harry hated Snape, he didn't treat him as an enemy. At most, they were disgusted with each other. In addition, there were some special emotions that were hard to explain. After learning that Snape liked his mother, and now seeing the son of an old friend, and because he looked like the man who stole his love, he felt mixed feelings of love and hate, and disgusted with each other. Harry suddenly had the illusion that he seemed to be not a person. Unlike the Dursleys, Snape's targeting seemed to be nitpicking, but in fact it did contain some obscure emotions. It was like a different kind of care. Harry, who was sharp-minded, noticed this, which made him even more depressed. So in the next few days, when Harry met Snape, he always subconsciously looked at him with a strange look. Well, targeting? Devaluing? Deducting points. Like a child who can't eat candy. Snape is just a fraction of my dad. No wonder I lost to him. Harry's eyes were naturally attracted by Snape, noticed it. He asked around and soon found some clues. Harry seemed to know something. This discovery made Snape feel very uncomfortable and angry. Snape didn't know who was gossiping, but he still went to Harry to get something out of the kid. Harry would not betray his friends. He kept his mouth shut. But how could a child compete with Snape, a double agent, a master of legilimency, and the best actor in the wizarding world? He found clues in a few minutes. Ivan Ambrosius. Snape did not use legilimency on Harry. Just as Ivan said, he would never harm his children. However, Harry's superficial thoughts were still captured by Snape. Ivan. This name was undoubtedly the answer he wanted. Why does he know this? Snape was puzzled. After all, at Ivan's age, it was impossible for him to know about his past with Lily, a little wizard who grew up in the Muggle world. He had no channels, but he knew such a secret. Exclude all impossibilities, and the rest, no matter how unreasonable, is the truth. That's right, Dumbledore. Snape, you old thing actually broke your promise. How dare you backstab me? As expected, I shouldn't have believed that insidious, cunning, despicable, and shameless old bee. Expose my past. I can't stand with the old bee. Severus. That night, Dumbledore was teaching Ivan magic in the headmaster's office. Snape suddenly broke in, and as soon as he opened the door, he said sarcastically, Wow, look, our greatest white wizard is here to share other people's secrets with others again. Dumbledore and Ivan looked at each other. The former had no idea what was going on, but as wise as he was, he still looked at Ivan at the first time. It seems that Mr. Ambrosius seems to have done something bad. After a period of getting along, Dumbledore has figured out Ivan's character and knows that he will not really offend anyone. Old Dumbledore winked at Ivan, suggesting that he should quickly resolve the misunderstanding with Snape. Cough. Ivan coughed dryly. He also felt that what he did was a bit unkind, talking bad about people behind their backs and exposing past Black history. These things are really unreliable. Sorry, Professor. Ivan told Snape everything he had said to Harry. That's all you said? After hearing what Ivan said, Snape secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Ivan knew his limits and didn't really reveal all his secrets. Yes, Ivan nodded and said, I think Harry, as the person involved, is qualified to know this. Well, Snape really had no reason to blame Ivan. Since Ivan was Harry's friend, he was very considerate of his friend by not telling him everything when he asked. If it were any other hot-blooded and impulsive little wizard who liked to show off, he would have already made Snape's secrets known to everyone. Prophecy. Know the past and predict the future. Snape found that he had underestimated Ivan's genius. This little wizard was simply terrifying. Even the Dark Lord couldn't have such a talent when he first entered school. Okay, Severus. Dumbledore said a few words to Ivan, asking him not to reveal more. Ivan will keep it a secret for you. No. Snape finally reacted, staring at Ivan. How much do you know? He realized at this moment that Ivan's knowing the past was not just a simple sentence. This kid, could it be that? As you think, Professor, I can see the past and the future. Ivan said calmly. Although it is very scattered and not comprehensive, I do know a lot. Good guy. Snape is a good guy. Ivan's ability is so terrifying. The secrets he tried so hard to hide seemed to be stripped in front of Ivan. Absolutely. Fine. Snape walked in front of Ivan, resisted the urge to kill him, and gritted his teeth and said, Tell anyone. Okay, Professor, I promise. Ivan smiled slightly and made a promise very naturally. He was not ashamed of talking bad about others behind their backs. Knowing it is one thing, and speaking without restraint is another. Ivan, I hope you can give me some help, Professor. Help? Snape was stunned. His mouth twitched slightly, knowing that Ivan's so-called help was simply a naked threat. Deal, this is a deal. Ivan, Professor, you don't want Harry to know what happened at the beginning, right? What do you want to do? Snape couldn't imagine that a young wizard who had just entered school dared to threaten him. And in front of Dumbledore, the greatest white wizard in the world. The two people, one is the headmaster of Hogwarts, and the other is the dean of Slytherin. In the wizarding world, it is not an exaggeration to say that Dumbledore is standing at the top of the world. As for Snape, he is the Dark Lord's confidant, the White Lord's right-hand man, a double agent, and the #1 villain in Harry Potter's infernal affairs. How dare you threaten me? You really don't know how to write the word death, right? Snape looked at Dumbledore, his eyes full of "you don't care." Unfortunately, Dumbledore, who was pretending to be crazy, perfectly demonstrated the reaction of an Alzheimer's patient. Papa. He opened a sugar jar on the table, grabbed a cockroach leg from it, and enjoyed it unscrupulously in front of the two of them. Well, I really like this taste. Snape's mouth twitched slightly. He really wanted to take out his wand immediately and give this old thing a big bite. What about the promise not to tell anyone and keep the secret for him? You said Dumbledore kept it a secret, But Ivan just turned on the plot? That's fine. I want to ask the professor to teach me how to duel wizards. What did you say? Ivan finished speaking, and Snape was completely confused. What's going on? Is my dark magic not evil enough? Or are you Ivan too proud? Listen to what he is saying. A first-year wizard, school has only been open for half a month, and Ivan has only been using his wand for a month. He is such a newbie among newbies, and he wants to solo with him? Are you serious? Snape didn't know how to evaluate Ivan, saying that he is courageous? Yes. Ivan glanced at Dumbledore, who was sitting beside him. He originally wanted to ask Dumbledore for advice. However, his instinct told Ivan that he was far from being Dumbledore's opponent now. Think about the plot in Fantastic Beasts 3. Dumbledore 60 or 70 years ago faced Credence and crushed him lightly, like a father beating his son. Compared with Credence, who was in his 20s, Ivan's magic power should be similar. With the advantage of the Phoenix Wand, Ivan felt that he should be stronger than Credence. However, compared with Dumbledore, who had studied magic for 60 or 70 years and stood at the top of the great wizard field, Ivan was really not good enough. Originally, I should have taught him how to duel. Seeing that Snape wanted to refuse, Dumbledore spoke at the right time. What? Snape wondered if he had heard it wrong. What level is Dumbledore? That is an existence that even the mysterious man fears. Snape has been in contact with Dumbledore for so many years, and he asked himself that with his magical attainments, he still couldn't see through Dumbledore, and he just felt that he was unfathomable. As for single-handedly defeating Dumbledore, what a joke. Please, Severus. Dumbledore's original plan was to help Ivan better master the Obscurus through a wizard duel. Dumbledore really had no secrets for Ivan. He seemed to have returned to the time when he was the professor of Transfiguration and the substitute of the defense against the dark arts class. He had a very fulfilling life recently. Do you know what you're talking about? Snape felt a headache. He didn't want to guide Ivan at all. This kid was threatening him just a second ago, but now he wanted to teach him how to fight. Snape suspected that Dumbledore really had Alzheimer's disease. No, mention more in front of him. Finally, Snape chose to compromise. He stared at Ivan and said word by word. And he said this, obviously agreeing. Don't worry, Ivan, will keep my mouth shut. Ivan smiled slightly. He was just trying to see if he could get in touch with Snape through Harry. Unexpectedly, it really worked. Sure enough, Ivan, Harry is Snape's breakthrough. Snape is undoubtedly a talent. A master of potions, a master of dark magic, and first-rate in both practical combat and mental ability. It would be a pity if such a person died under the fangs of Nagini as in the original book. Therefore, within his ability, Ivan did not mind lending a hand to him, and he saved him. Let's continue with our previous topic. Snape left, and Ivan and Dumbledore were left in the headmaster's office again. Okay, Professor. Ivan sat in front of Dumbledore, and he said calmly, You should know better than me how powerful the power of fate is. Before Snape came, Dumbledore was seeking help from Ivan about the prophecy. He wanted to know the secret of Voldemort's immortality. I can only say that the prophecy is true. One will die in the hands of the other, and only one of the two can survive. Ivan was talking about the prophecy about Voldemort and Harry. The ending is already determined, but how to go to the end is still in our hands. Is Voldemort strong? Many people think that Voldemort is weak because his nemesis is a little wizard in school. But the fact is that Voldemort is very scary. You know, Grindelwald was only defeated by Dumbledore, but Voldemort died in the plot. Voldemort's death is too coincidental. With 7 Horcruxes, any wizard, even Dumbledore, can't do anything to him. If Harry hadn't given Voldemort the destined death, who could defeat Voldemort in the entire wizarding world? To put it bluntly, with the Horcruxes, Voldemort can fail countless times, and you have to win all the time. In addition, the prophecy is not as omnipotent as you think. Before Snape came, Dumbledore was asking Ivan if he could use divination of the past to find the secret of Voldemort's immortality. Voldemort's secret is the Horcrux, which Ivan naturally knows. But the problem is that there are certain limitations to divination of the past. Just like divination of Voldemort and Dumbledore's past, there are some things that Ivan cannot see. Divination and prophecy are a kind of magic in themselves. Since it is magic, there will naturally be means of resistance. The gift of fate seems to have no side effects, but in fact, the prize has been secretly prepared. Who killed Ariana in the first place? Why didn't Voldemort die? He made several Horcruxes. And where were these Horcruxes hidden? There are also targets protected by the Fidelius charm, certain magical knowledge, etc., which cannot be learned through divination. So, even if Ivan knows the original plot, there are still some things that cannot be said casually. You are right. Dumbledore took off his glasses. He understood what Ivan meant. Voldemort is nothing now. His fate has been determined. However, if the two of them interfere too much and Voldemort discovers the mystery of fate, that would be a big problem. Chapter 56. Flying Lesson. What does it mean to solve the mystery of fate? Voldemort. Death is just the beginning. Just like this, when Voldemort found a way to break the deadlock and jumped out of the predetermined fate, the original prophecy was broken. If this really happens, Voldemort's magic power is likely to go further and reach 6 points. Ivan had asked Dumbledore before about how to increase the magic power to 6 points. And Dumbledore's answer was also very clear. That is, to solve your own destiny. According to Ivan's guess, at the end of the original book, Dumbledore, who chose to start another great adventure, should have entered this realm and transcended life and death. Good fortune and misfortune are interdependent, and the fate of death is a judgment on Voldemort. But it is also a test. Not only Voldemort, but also Grindelwald and Credence. Ivan doesn't know what Grindelwald's test is, but Credence should break the curse of the Obscurus and gain a new life from mind to body. Good night, Professor. Good night, little Ivan. After leaving the principal's office, Ivan returned to the dormitory. Neville had fallen asleep. However, Yumi, noticing the return of her master, jumped off the bed and landed lightly, then jumped onto Ivan's trouser legs. Speak softly, don't wake Neville. Ivan sat down with Yumi in his arms. He opened his system while petting the cat. Obtain the main task. 1. Main task. Description: you have learned the mystery of breaking through the legend, and now the full task is open task requirements. Refine a magic stone alone task reward. 1 experience point can be added above the legend. Here it comes. Ivan knew that the system had a way to let him reach a higher level. Magic stone. But this task is really difficult for Ivan now. It is simply a fantasy for a first-year wizard to refine the magic stone. What is the magic stone? In the wizard world, it is equivalent to the philosopher's stone of equivalent exchange, representing the highest level of alchemy. The only wizard who has successfully refined the magic stone is Nicholas Flamel. With my current knowledge, it is impossible to complete this task. Ivan said secretly, if you want to know the formula of the magic stone and the skills required for refining, you can only go to Nicholas Flamel. Fortunately, this task has no time limit. As long as Ivan can complete it, he can still gain this experience even after a few years or more than 10 years. It seems that I need to strengthen my study of alchemy. The emergence of the main task has opened up a new track for Ivan. In addition to the study of spells, he has a new study plan. In the next few days, Ivan found many books about alchemy in the library. Hermione also has talent in this area, but the little witch has too many things to learn now, so Ivan does not recommend her to spend time on alchemy. The little witch accepted Ivan's advice and put all her energy into learning spells. Neville is still in a daze. The boy follows Ivan and his girlfriend every day and occasionally plays with Harry and Ronald, who come over when they are alone. That day, Ivan and Hermione came to the hall and found that the little wizards seemed to be particularly active. After asking around, she found out that there was a flying class today. Almost a month after the start of school, the first flying class at Hogwarts was finally about to begin. As we all know, the entertainment activities for children in the world are quite scarce. They enter Hogwarts at the age of 11, and before that, they had almost always stayed at home. Because of the sparse population, wizard families are far apart, and many little wizards are alone before entering school. Ivan is not really interested in Quidditch. Of course, Ivan doesn't hate Quidditch. He just has no interest in this kind of sports that can improve his magical attainments. What bad luck. Harry sat opposite Ivan and said frustratedly, I have flying lessons with Slytherin. I can't imagine how he would laugh at me if I made a fool of myself in front of Malfoy. It's not certain whether you will make a fool of yourself. Ronald pouted. I know Malfoy always brags that he is very good at playing Quidditch, but I bet he is just bragging. As the flying class approached, some young wizards who had magic brooms at home and had played simple Quidditch games kept bragging about their flying skills. Among these people, Malfoy was the best. Not only Harry, but even Ivan and the drag queen often showed off in front of him. Both of them came from the Muggle world and had never touched a flying broom in their lives. Malfoy felt superior and was determined to show off in front of them. In the hall, Malfoy was loudly describing his flying skills, and he told many long, self-boasting stories for this, which always ended with him narrowly avoiding a Muggle helicopter. Hogwarts school rules are not reasonable at all. Malfoy, why are first-year students not eligible to join the school Quidditch team? It seemed as if Hogwarts had missed a genius born with a flying body. And this situation is not an isolated case. For example, our explosive Saint Seamus Finnegan, from his tone, seems to have spent most of his childhood flying around in the wilderness on a broomstick. Even Ronald, if anyone is willing to listen, will talk about the time he almost hit a hang glider while riding Charlie's broken broom. For a time, almost everyone from a wizarding family was chattering about Quidditch. Children's competitive spirit. Ivan smiled at this. It was just a fight between children. Even if his flying skills were really bad, being laughed at was a good spice of life. No one is perfect. Ivan thinks he is already awesome enough, and it is normal to have some flaws. However, Malfoy brought Harry along, and Ivan felt that he was a little arrogant. How good is Harry's flying skill? How could Ivan not know? I'll leave the flying lesson to you, Harry. Ivan gave Harry an encouraging look. When the time comes, show Malfoy some color. What? Harry was stunned for a moment. Although Ivan's encouragement made him very happy, he was really unfamiliar with flying brooms. Ivan, can I do it? Neville was very worried that he would fall off the flying broom. He had never ridden a flying broom in his life. Because his grandmother never let him get close to the flying broom, Ivan felt that his grandmother was right. Even if Neville's 2 feet were honestly on the ground, he could always create endless accidents. What if he flew into the sky? Don't worry, Ivan comforted. Even if you really fall, don't you still have me? I will catch you. Thank you. Yes, he still has Ivan. With Ivan, even if there's a flying accident, he can ensure everyone's safety. No, the surrounding wizards all cast grateful eyes upon hearing Ivan say this, and even their original fear of flying faded a lot. It must be admitted that after a month of getting along, Ivan's status in the minds of the first-year wizards has been greatly improved. Gryffindor regards Ivan as the Lion King and their leader. Ravenclaw bows down to Ivan's wisdom, and almost everyone has sought help from him in magic and life. Hufflepuffs like Ivan's approachability and often share with him the food from the kitchen next door. Ivan also added Hermione, Neville, Harry, and others, greatly strengthening the relationship between the little lion and the little badger. As for Slytherin, no one knows who found Ivan's surname, Ambrosius, a descendant of Merlin, the Eternal Family. Although Ivan did not publicly admit it, everyone was still just guessing, but this amazing background still caused an uproar in Slytherin. There is no doubt that even the oldest pure-blood family would pale in comparison to the name of Ambrosius. The little snakes dared not act rashly in front of Ivan. In addition to Ivan's ability, Merlin's blood played a significant role. Perhaps in their eyes, Ivan was a pure blood who was lost outside, and he was more noble than all of them, and was destined to be a great man at the top of pure blood in the future. You said he was a Gryffindor? Is it not okay to be an undercover agent? Is it not okay to cast a pearl in the dark? Is it difficult to understand the heart of a sphinx? In a word, Ivan is special. He is not in the same dimension as everyone else, and he is a transcendent existence. Quidditch rules, flying essentials. Beside Ivan, Hermione was holding a copy of Magical Quidditch and reciting it continuously. The little witch was as nervous as Neville. Don't worry, it's just flying. Ivan patted Hermione's head, but the little witch was not afraid of falling, but that she would not be able to fly at all. It's not Hermione's fault. She's just too crazy about Quidditch. In addition to the first-year little witch, her roommate also has a senior student. They talked a lot about Quidditch. Over time, Hermione also became interested in Quidditch. Miss Beaver, who was born with a strong body, would never fall on a broom. She wanted to become a member of the Gryffindor Quidditch team like her senior. Ivan knew Hermione's situation. This girl's thinking attributes were almost all focused on learning. As for reflexes and athletic talent, it was a stretch to say that she was passing with low scores. Hermione liked this, playing Quidditch. Ivan was worried that the broom would hit her into the goal. Just be happy. Ivan did not say anything to hurt people. He was already thinking about how to comfort the little witch after she hit a wall. Suddenly, the cry of an owl was heard over the hall. Everyone looked up and saw that the package had arrived. Neville received the package from his grandmother. He happily opened it and found a yo-yo-sized glass ball inside, which was faintly filled with white mist. Is this a memory ball? Hermione immediately recognized it and explained to everyone, "It will tell you if there is something you forgot to do. As long as you hold it tightly, if it turns red." As Hermione was talking, the memory ball in Neville's hand suddenly turned red and bright. "You just forgot something, but I don't remember what I forgot at all." Neville tried hard to recall what he had forgotten. At this moment, Draco Malfoy passed by the Gryffindor dining table and snatched the memory ball from him. "Hey, everyone look! Neville got a memory ball. Get back to me, Malfoy." Neville was startled by Malfoy, and he chased after the dagger, trying to get the memory ball back. Harry and Ronald also stood up to help. For a while, the hall was in chaos, with chickens flying and dogs jumping. Childhood. Ivan did not stop him. The dagger was a little naughty, and he bullied Neville more than once. For such things, Ivan just needed to make sure that it didn't go too far, and there was no need to intervene. "Okay, Draco." Seeing that Malfoy was about to fight with Ronald, Ivan waved his hand and summoned the memory ball directly into his hand. Ronald, too, don't fight in the hall. After that, Ivan returned the memory ball to Neville. When Malfoy saw Ivan speak up, he obediently returned to the middle of Goyle and Crabbe, not daring to make any rash moves. This is the majestic image that Ivan established in front of Slytherin. If Ivan doesn't show up in any conflict, you can fight or draw. But once Ivan spoke, the lions and snakes had to settle down and live their lives honestly. Evil Malfoy. Poor Weasley. Ronald and Malfoy were whispering to each other, but Ivan was used to it and chose to ignore it. It was just a quarrel. As long as they didn't fight and let them vent, it didn't matter. That's good. After a month, Ivan had completed his rule over the first-year freshmen. In the 4 colleges, except for Hermione and Neville, he didn't show any special favoritism and basically maintained an equal attitude. The professors were happy to see it happen. Professor McGonagall also praised Ivan for this, saying that since he came to Hogwarts, the relationship between the 4 colleges has become much more harmonious. At 3:30 in the afternoon, Ivan and other Gryffindor students came to the field in front of the door. The Slytherin students had arrived, and next to them, there were more than 20 flying brooms, neatly arranged on the ground. The flying class teacher is Ms. Hooch, who has short gray hair and yellow eyes, as sharp as an eagle. "Okay, what are you waiting for?" Ms. Hooch said sternly. "Everyone stand next to a flying broom. Quickly, quickly, hurry up." Under her urging, the little wizards chose their brooms one after another. "Stretch out your right hand and place it on the broom handle, MS." Hooch shouted in front. "Then speak." Everyone's brooms are similar, old and broken. Ivan followed Ms. Hooch's instructions. He spread his hands and put them on the flying broom. "Get up." 14. As Ivan ordered, the broom at his feet jumped into his hands as if it came alive. This scene attracted the attention of many young wizards. But after seeing that it was Ivan, everyone looked away. "Ivan, that's fine." This is what the young wizards of the 2 academies thought at this time. They were used to Ivan's excellent performance. Ivan grabbed the flying broom in his hand. He didn't use magic or cast any spells. He just shouted, "Telepathy transmission." Many magic items in the wizarding world have a certain degree of self-awareness. This is because when wizards make magic items, their minds will be endowed with magic power. Flying brooms, memory balls, portraits. Ivan is no longer surprised by this. However, Ivan is quite happy that his flying talent can be recognized by the flying broom. A few minutes later, Harry's broom, like Ivan's, immediately jumped into his hand. But there are only a few brooms that are so obedient. Hermione's broom just rolled on the ground, while Neville's broom didn't move at all. Ivan, is there any trick here? Seeing more and more little wizards get brooms, Hermione is a little anxious. Hermione, speak softly, you scared it. And Neville, think of something that makes you angry, and then scold your broom. These brooms are like living things, each with its own personality. Hermione was tough from the start, and the repeated come up had already scared her broom. Neville's side was even simpler. His broom saw the cowardice of its owner and ignored him. Hermione pouted in dissatisfaction when Ivan said she was too fierce, but she still relaxed and called her broom in a gentle tone. Sure enough, just as Ivan said, although the broom was not fast, it eventually flew into the hands of the little witch. Seeing this scene, Hermione was no longer suspicious. He brewed his emotions, recalling Snape's sarcasm, that series of poisonous tongue, which was very lifelike. Come up. But when Neville really got the broom, even the knowledgeable Mrs. Hooch was stunned. Chapter 57, I have talent, but I just have no interest. How did you do it? Mrs. Hooch looked at Ivan. She thought for a moment and seemed to recognize the identity of this little wizard. I remember you are Ambrosius. It's me, Mrs. Hooch. The professors are all talking about you, Mrs. Hooch said with a smile. Because of your outstanding performance, Minerva has been very happy recently. How could she not be happy? Thanks to Ivan, Professor McGonagall has been very proud in front of other professors. Recently, when Professor Cat met Ivan, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. By the way, how did you see it just now? Those two brooms. It's a bit difficult to explain. The reason why Ivan can know is that as magic, I can see the magic fluctuations on magic items. If magic items are compared to people, Ivan's ability is similar to a special mind-reading skill, which can know what magic items are thinking. During this period, whenever Ivan walked in the corridor and passed by those paintings, all kinds of emotional fluctuations would emerge in his mind. From the entire castle of Hogwarts to the memory ball that Neville just got. Every magical creation must be accompanied by the spiritual power of the creator. Interpret them and understand them. This is the powerful talent that Ivan once again realized after his soul was upgraded to 5 points. Not only Mrs. Hooch, but other young wizards were also confused. The emotions of magic items? The castle also has its own ideas? These words sound so abstract, just like the fairy tales we heard in childhood. There is no way. Everyone can only attribute it to Ivan's talent. Can't learn. Ambrose, the omnipotent. Not far away, Malfoy whispered, he knows everything. This is a teasing remark, but after hearing it, everyone had a nod secretly, thinking that it was true. 1 month after the start of school, Ivan really seemed to be omnipotent. Anyway, they haven't encountered anything that Ivan can't handle. He is not cold, nor arrogant. Ivan would carefully point out the mistakes and key points of any young wizard who asked him about magic. He was always so calm, always elegant and polite. Even a troublemaker like Malfoy respected and feared Ivan in his heart. Ivan is worthy of my family. Hermione was proud of it, and Neville nodded again and again. Yes, if you have any trouble, why not ask the magical Ambrosius? Next, he showed them how to ride on the broom without sliding off the bed. She walked around in the team and corrected their hand grip. During this period, Mrs. Hooch criticized Malfoy for doing it wrong more than once, which made Harry and Ronald laugh at him. Okay, when I blow the whistle, you kick your legs and leave the ground, and you have to kick hard. Ms. Hooch said, hold the broom steady, rise a few feet, then lean forward slightly and fall vertically back to the ground. Listen to my whistle. And at this moment, Neville and the team screamed. Before the whistle touched Ms. Hooch's lips, his feet had already left the ground, and then he soared into the sky like a cork that burst open. Come back, child. Mrs. Hooch's face was pale, but before she could do anything, Neville in the air had already plunged down and dived towards the ground at an astonishing speed. Slow down. Seeing this scene that happened in the original book, Ivan's eyes condensed slightly. He waved his wand lightly, and a freezing spell instantly covered the sky. Ivan did not aim, but froze the entire sky above the venue, including Neville and his flying broom. Merlin's socks. Mrs. Hooch noticed this, and she was relieved and shocked by Ivan's ability to cast spells. What an amazing, freezing spell. Are you okay, Neville? Ivan pulled Neville in the air to his side, and then untied the freezing spell for him. The boy was pale, obviously frightened. Hermione, Ronald, and Harry hurried forward to comfort him, and Ivan checked Neville's condition and found that he was just frightened and was fine. Child, are you okay? Mrs. Hooch, do you need me to take you to the infirmary? I'm fine. I'm. Neville raised his head timidly. He was still in shock, but he didn't want to leave in such a dejected way. I was too anxious. Ivan's wand glowed, and he cast a joy spell on Neville, filling his heart with joy and dispelling his fear. Are you feeling better? Yes, much better. Neville's face turned redder, and he was amazed. Thank you, Ivan. This magic is amazing. The joyful charm, also known as the happy charm, is a spell that makes people happy. Ivan told everyone not to worry about the flight problem. He would be ready for rescue and would not let them get hurt. With Ivan as a guarantee, Xiaojiang and his friends immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Good boy, Mrs. Hooch praised. Gryffindor, add 15 points for your outstanding behavior. Hooray, Ivan, 15 points. Ivan, the little wizards of Gryffindor jumped up and down, making the little snakes on the side very jealous. Unfortunately, they were convinced by Ivan. This guy doesn't look like a little wizard at all. He is too fierce. Yes, very good, that's it. Keep your balance, don't look around, have confidence. Soon, under the command and correction of Mrs. Hooch, the little wizards flew into the air on their brooms. Ivan flew beside Hermione and Neville. The two flew very low, almost like flying close to the ground. However, considering that both of them were afraid of heights, Ivan stayed nearby to give them a sense of security as much as possible. Suddenly, a scream came from not far away. Ivan looked and saw a girl from Gryffindor College falling from the sky. Freeze! Ivan's movements were very fast. He didn't even pull out his wand, and he had already fixed the little witch in the air. Child, are you okay? Mrs. Hooch stepped forward anxiously and carefully checked the girl's condition. The little witch was called Lavender Brown. In the original book, she had a relationship with Ronald and died tragically at the hands of the werewolf Fenrir Greyback. In addition, Lavender and another little witch named Parvati Patil are Hermione's roommates. Especially the latter. It seems that she has a very good relationship with Hermione. Every time Yumi visits, Parvati will give her a lot of snacks, so she is loved by the cute cat. I'll take you to the school hospital, and the others will follow the command of Ambrosius. Lavender was not injured, but the shock caused by falling from the air still made Mrs. Hooch worried. Fortunately, there is Ivan here. After 2 rescues, plus the praise of Professors McGonagall, Flitwick, and Sprout, Mrs. Hooch really felt Ivan's reliability and excellence. Thank you, Ivan. Mrs. Hooch added, before I come, just ask everyone not to fly over the wall. I know, ma'am. Ivan nodded in response, and he stopped flying, just floating on the field on his broom. Ivan actually didn't have much interest in flying brooms. It felt good to be able to watch others fly leisurely. Of course, Ivan was not very interested in real flying magic. Unfortunately, in the original book, only Snape and Voldemort could use this magic. Ivan suspected that Snape's flying magic might have the same origin as Voldemort's. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so similar. It seems that we have to find a way to take this magic from Snape. Ivan himself has the ability to fly, such as directly transforming into an Obscurus and freely shuttle through the air in the form of a black storm. But this method will undoubtedly expose Ivan's identity as an Obscurus. Old Dumbledore was really good to him, and Ivan was not an ungrateful person, so he didn't intend to cause trouble for the old headmaster. Ivan didn't doubt the character of the deans. It's just that the little wizards and the parents of the students. Ivan will not forget the various treatments Harry suffered after Voldemort's resurrection in the original book. The Ministry of Magic, the parents of the students, the board of directors. Ivan can be sure that once his identity as an Obscurus is exposed, there will be no place for him in Hogwarts. Ivan, just thinking. Ivan heard Hermione calling him and quickly came back to his senses. What's wrong? How am I flying? Yeah, I'm flying well, that's it, keep it up. Under Ivan's guidance, Hermione and Neville can already balance their brooms 2 meters above the ground. Seeing the progress of the two, Hermione's other roommate, Parvati, came over carefully, wanted to ask for some tips on flying. Ivan naturally wouldn't refuse. Parvati is an Asian little witch from India. Unlike Hermione, who was irritable and didn't know how to dress up when she was a child, Parvati is a beauty, a cute little loli with Indian style. Ivan remembered that in the original book, the most beautiful girls in Hogwarts should be the Patil sisters. It's a pity that they were persecuted by the movie. Due to the casting problem, the Patil sisters don't look outstanding in the movie. Fortunately, Ivan came to a real world. Whether it is Hermione, whose beauty is obscured by the bookish air, or Parvati, both give people a pleasing feeling. Very good, you have mastered the air. Ivan stood on the grass, with Hermione, Parvati, and Neville above him. After a period of practice, they have climbed to a height of 3 meters, which is a big improvement. Ivan, do you want to practice too? Hermione felt embarrassed that Ivan gave up flying and spent his time on them. Parvati and Neville had the same idea. Me? Ivan smiled slightly. He stepped on the broom, and then the whole person soared into the sky like a gust of wind. Ivan was like an arrow from a string. The whole person drew an arc in the air, and at the same time performed several difficult moves that he saw in Hermione's book in succession, and then landed smoothly and returned to the 3 people. Amazing! Ivan, have you practiced secretly? I think Ivan's flying skills are good enough for him to try out for the Quidditch team. The 3 of them were amazed at Ivan's flying skills. Hermione thought Ivan had been exposed to flying brooms before, but then she thought that Ivan was with her almost every day and had no time to practice flying. As for Parvati, she was completely immersed in Ivan's chic and heroic figure when flying and couldn't extricate herself for a long time. Quidditch, as a sport, may not be interesting in Ivan's eyes, but Ivan obviously underestimated its status in the wizarding world. Just like Parvati, Neville, Lavender, and other little wizards, Quidditch players are no different from the most dazzling stars in their eyes. This also led to Ivan's series of showmanship just now, which attracted the screams of all the little wizards, and their eyes were shining with admiration. Is there anything he can't do? Ronald said sourly, while Harry looked at Ivan with fiery eyes. He felt that Ivan was more like a savior than himself. Seeing everyone gathered around Ivan, Malfoy raised his eyebrows and immediately moved closer to Harry and Ronald and began his suicidal behavior of provoking Scarhead again. On the other side, Ivan couldn't stand the enthusiasm of the little wizards. Suddenly, everyone heard a scream. They all looked up and saw 2 figures flying high into the sky, one after the other. What's going on? Ivan looked closely and saw that the 2 people were Harry and Malfoy. He was a little confused. Although in the original book, Malfoy had taken Neville's memory ball, thus creating Harry's famous scene. But now Neville was staying there, and the memory ball was also staying in his pocket. What happened to the 2 of them? The crowd parted, and Ivan walked to Ronald, who was still a little dazed, while Hermione shouted at them, "Come down quickly. You are flying too high. It's dangerous." "It's Malfoy." Ronald quickly told Ivan what had just happened. Malfoy insulted Harry's parents. Tisk. Ivan quickly sorted out the cause and effect. Malfoy mocked Harry with words, and Harry couldn't stand it and wanted to attack him, but the latter arrogantly flew into the air and continued to provoke him from above. "Good guy. Can you bear this? If you can bear it, then it's not Harry." In response, Ivan shook his head helplessly. He really didn't know what to say to the 2 of them. Get them down first, and then teach Malfoy a lesson. Thinking of this, Ivan had already drawn his wand. But before he could cast a spell, Malfoy in the sky dodged and hit the top of the tower in the distance, and then fell straight down. He fell down. This scene really scared many young wizards present, especially Pansy. The little witch screamed. Her face was extremely pale, and then she instinctively ran towards the direction where Malfoy fell. "Ivan!" Hermione called anxiously. Ivan's eyes sank slightly, and the hand holding the wand had already prepared a spell to cushion the impact. However, the next moment, Ivan's hand paused slightly. Harry, who was still in the air, suddenly swooped down and then rescued Malfoy with an agile posture that everyone could not imagine. Harry Potter, did you see that? That was a fake move by Jaren. Harry used a flying skill that even professional players don't know. The young wizards were shocked by the flying skills Harry showed, and Seamus shouted the loudest, as if he saw the scene of Harry becoming a professional player. Is this the 4-point reflex nerve? Ivan took back his wand and said with emotion, "It's really amazing." Ivan was a little surprised. He didn't expect that with his appearance, Harry still showed his extraordinary flying talent. Of course, Ivan was not upset or jealous. In his eyes, the kind and simple Harry was like a younger brother, living under someone else's roof, helpless and helpless. If possible, Ivan didn't mind letting Harry stand in the spotlight and enjoy the attention and cheers that a savior should have. Well, we just have to change this kid's impulsiveness. Like everyone else, Ivan welcomed Harry, who returned victoriously. "Ivan, how is Malfoy?" "It's okay." Ivan used magic to lay Malfoy flat on the grass. He checked him and found that he was just frightened and there was no big problem. Malfoy's face was very ugly. He was saved by Harry Potter, the most annoying scarred man. When he thought of this, Malfoy wanted to find a hole to crawl into. But this is the fact. Harry Potter, after the flying class, Professor McGonagall found Harry and took him away in the worried eyes of Hermione and others. Ivan knew that Professor McGonagall had taken a fancy to Harry's flying talent and wanted him to join the Gryffindor team and become a Seeker. Sure enough, at dinner, Harry shared this matter with everyone with great excitement. Chapter 58, Ivan versus Snape. Are you kidding? Ronald didn't even notice that his favorite beef pie slipped off his fork when he heard that Harry became a Seeker. "Harry, you must be the youngest Seeker in all these years." Ronald was very envious. But when he thought of Harry's excellent performance when he saved Malfoy, he could only hide that little bit of jealousy in his heart. "Congratulations, Harry." Ivan congratulated Harry from the bottom of his heart, and the boy said a little stiffly, "Ivan, your flying skills are also very good. I think you should also join." "Harry." Ivan interrupted Harry with a smile and said, "I'm not very interested in Quidditch." Don't look at me like that." At this point, the little wizards around looked sideways, thinking that it was too unbelievable that Ivan didn't like Quidditch. That's Quidditch. There are people in this world who don't like Quidditch. To be honest, I prefer studying flying spells to Quidditch. Seamus questioned beside him. "There is no spell in the wizarding world that can make people fly. I mean, to make yourself fly without relying on any props." Yes. Ivan did not refute this point. He said, "That's why it is worth studying, isn't it?" Well, everyone has become accustomed to Ivan's erudition and fantastic ideas. I believe you will succeed. Although Harry likes Quidditch, he also admires Ivan. After a month of getting along, Harry and Hermione have already been hardened. Ivan is omnipotent. Why not ask the smart Ivan? "I have Ivan. What do you have?" Well, since Ivan said so, it must be not aimless. In the days that followed, Ivan and Hermione immersed themselves in learning magic. During this period, the turmoil of Harry becoming a Seeker lasted for several days. Malfoy provoked Harry for this. However, it seemed that Ivan intervened, and the midnight duel that was supposed to take place did not occur, which caused Harry to not mistakenly enter the restricted corridor on the 4th floor. Unconsciously, Ivan has changed the original plot. The game of breaking through the magic stone, unknowingly, is getting farther and farther away from Harry. Time passed quickly, and Halloween is approaching. "Are you kidding me?" Hermione looked at Ivan blankly. She couldn't believe her ears. "You are going to Professor Snape duel?" The two walked along the Black Lake. Not far away, there was a giant squid lazily lying on the grass, basking in the sun. This is a specialty of the Black Lake in Hogwarts. Legend has it that it is Gryffindor's animagus, the largest animagus in the world. Ivan didn't know how to comment on this. Under his magic eye and spiritual vision, this giant squid is indeed magical, but Ivan didn't see that it was transformed from Gryffindor. In addition, the giant squid has a good temper. Although it looks a bit Cthulhu-style, it will rescue little wizards who fall into the water and often interacts with couples who come here to hang out, so it is deeply loved by Hogwarts students. Well, Ivan walked side by side with Hermione, and he nodded. Do you want to come and see? Yes, can I? Hermione was a little excited. She thought that this private duel would be very secretive, but since Ivan invited her, how could she refuse? Snape is a professor at the school, a master of magic. She knew that Ivan was very strong and gifted. But just 2 months after entering school, he had a duel with a professor, which really subverted Hermione's cognition. In her opinion, this is no less than a primary school student competing with a teacher at a famous university. It's just a duel. It has nothing to do with magic attainments. Whether they win or lose, this can only prove the fighting power of Ivan and Snape, and magic attainments are not directly linked to fighting power. This is very dangerous. Hermione worriedly said, What if you get hurt? Don't worry, Principal Dumbledore is here. The principal will go too. The little witch widened her eyes. She wanted to complain a little. We are all little wizards. Why is your life trajectory so outrageous? She also created the image of a good student in front of Professor McGonagall. What about Ivan? He can already chat and laugh with the principal and the deans. In fact, this matter was arranged for us by Principal Dumbledore. Because I want to test my current practical level, Ivan, just because I was asked to come here for Harry's matter. What about Harry's mother? Hermione hesitated a little. She was afraid that she would disturb Ivan. There is also the factor of inferiority. Hermione feels that a little wizard like her is not qualified to watch the duel between Ivan and Snape. Will be a bit abrupt to take me there. It's okay. Ivan smiled and said, I have mentioned it to Principal Dumbledore, and he agreed to my request. Is it really okay? Hearing that Principal Dumbledore allowed it, Hermione immediately became excited. Watching professors duel is not a treatment that a newly enrolled wizard can have. Hermione admitted that she was very tempted. DL, Ivan said, when the time comes, I will tell you a secret. Secret. Hermione tilted her head, her fluffy hair dancing in the wind. You will know when the time comes. Ivan intends to tell Hermione about his identity as a silent person, which is also his original plan. Hermione is the person Ivan trusts most in this world. And after Ivan's training, Hermione is not as rigid and stubborn as before and regards school rules as an absolute rule. Although she still follows the rules, Hermione will choose Ivan without hesitation between Ivan and school rules. For example, when Ivan violates school rules, Hermione will conceal it for him. Even if Ivan gets into trouble and is expelled, Hermione hopes that she can take the blame with him. In a word, we share the same difficulties and honors and disgraces. I will cheer for you. Hermione subconsciously grabbed Ivan's hand, but soon let go, and her pretty face couldn't help but blush. Ivan pretended not to know. What's wrong? Nothing. Hermione felt her face was a little red. She didn't know what she was shy about, so she changed the subject. When is the duel? 8 o'clock tonight, at the edge of the Forbidden Forest. In the following time, the two did not say much, but just sat quietly by the Black Lake, admiring the beautiful lake view. The giant squid, not far away, naturally noticed the two. It waved its tentacles slightly, creating ripples in the water, as if expressing the pure and sincere feelings of a young wizard who was lamenting the beauty of youth. This reminded it of decades ago. It was also here, and there was also a pair of young wizards. Unfortunately, they didn't end up together. At night, Ivan brought Hermione to the principal's office. Look, our genius Ambrosius takes his girlfriend with him wherever he goes. Snape had been waiting here for a long time. When he saw Ivan, especially Hermione following behind the boy, he was immediately furious. What? Do you want her to cheer you up during the duel? Why didn't I know that Miss Know-It-All was also a part-time cheerleader for someone? Hermione wanted to curse. Fortunately, after 2 months, Hermione was almost used to Snape's venomous tongue and prejudice. Professor, it was me who invited Hermione. Ivan said, I think witnessing a high-level magic duel in advance can help broaden our horizons. High-level, Snape said sarcastically. A young wizard who has just been enrolled for less than 2 months? That depends on you, Professor. Ivan fought back without showing any weakness. I think you don't mind letting us see what high-end spellcasting skills are. Arrogant boy. Snape felt humiliated. He didn't think Ivan had the level to compete with him. Dumbledore must have Alzheimer's disease, Otherwise, he wouldn't have thought of such an outrageous thing. It seems that you are ready. Dumbledore walked out of the door, with Fawkes on his shoulder. Severus, don't underestimate Ivan. You will suffer. Humph! Snape knew Ivan was excellent, so he didn't think of letting him off. On the contrary, Snape was going to teach Ivan a lesson so that he would know what it meant to be high and low. And Miss Granger, the smartest little witch in the first grade. Dumbledore winked at Hermione. I've heard professors praise you a lot. Headmaster, good evening. Good evening. Dumbledore smiled gently at Hermione. Welcome to witness the magic exchange tonight. Seeing you, I feel like I saw Minerva in the past. You're too kind. Hermione was flattered. She didn't dare to compare herself with Professor McGonagall. The old Dumbledore in this world is more like the old man in the first two movies, always giving people a steady and kind feeling like a spring breeze. Dex. At this time, Fawkes flew from Dumbledore's shoulder. The old man asked the three to grab his arm, and then a ball of flame burst out of Fawkes's body, instantly covering the four people below. By the time Hermione reacted, the surrounding environment had already changed. Where is this? Hermione was surprised. Forbidden Forest? We are in the Forbidden Forest. This ability, which is like teleportation, naturally would not be unknown to Hermione, who is well-read. Fireplace teleportation, apparition. But Hermione remembered that Hogwarts seemed to be unable to apparition. A little trick for the elderly. Dumbledore stood with Hermione. You will keep it a secret from me, right? Of course. Hermione immediately realized what this ability to apparition in Hogwarts meant. The two remained silent, watching Ivan and Snape walk to the edge of the Forbidden Forest, ready for a duel. All protection. Ultimate protection, solid as a rock. Dumbledore took out the old wand and began to set up isolation magic around. This is deep in the Forbidden Forest, far from Hogwarts. However, just in case, Dumbledore still cast many protective and isolating barriers to ensure that the movement here will not affect the young wizards in the Academy. Released by the great wizard Dumbledore himself, plus the bonus of the Elder Wand. The strength of this protective spell is that even if Voldemort comes in person, it will take a lot of time to break it. Dumbledore is definitely old and confused. Snape looked at Dumbledore suspiciously, not understanding why he was so cautious. It's just a little wizard. Can he make a big fuss against a little wizard? I'm actually optimistic about you, Severus. And Dumbledore winked at Snape playfully, and this contemptuous attitude really made Snape angry. Okay, both of you. According to the etiquette of dueling, you must first salute your opponent. Ivan and Snape followed Dumbledore's instructions and held their wands upright in front of them. However, they did not choose to walk 3 steps back to back and turn around to fight like playing house. The two faced each other calmly. Ivan was serious, but Snape was a little indifferent. Professor, Hermione was a little nervous, and she whispered, "Who do you think will win?" In theory, this is not what Hermione should ask. Snape is a professor after all. No matter how good Ivan is, he can't catch up with him in 2 months. But Hermione is lucky. Her Ivan is omnipotent. Maybe he really won? It's hard to say. Dumbledore guessed the purpose of Ivan's asking Hermione to come here. Ivan's going to get serious. What? Hermione was surprised. You mean Ivan has the possibility of winning? Yes. Dumbledore didn't play dumb and said directly, little Ivan's strength, at least in terms of fighting, is amazing. 11. Let's start. Snape started with a disarming spell. The red light cut through the darkness and pierced Ivan's chest. The speed was so fast that even Hermione, who was watching the battle, didn't react. What a fast spell. However, Ivan just slightly turned sideways and dodged the magic beam lightly. Then he backhandedly cast the disarming spell while waving his empty left hand. Oomph. Ivan's disarming spell was obviously not as proficient as Snape's. Whether it was speed or angle, in Snape's eyes, it was no different from a beginner. However, just when Snape was about to use the armor charm to block it, an inexplicable sense of horror suddenly rose from Snape's heart. Danger! Without any hesitation, Snape chose to follow his instinct. He also dodged this disarming spell. At the same time, a huge rock beside him seemed to be pulled and rolled towards him. Chapter 59, You Must Be Sweating. Snape, gesture casting? Snape was shocked. He didn't expect Ivan to master the technique of double casting. How old is he? Boom! Before Snape could think about it, a loud noise from behind interrupted his thoughts. Snape didn't know what was happening behind him. Now was not the time to pay attention to it. Dig! Then, with a crisp sound like firecrackers, Snape's figure disappeared. The flying boulder fell into the air, and Snape's figure appeared in an open space not far away. What did you do? Snape's face was solemn. He looked back at the place where he was standing. He saw that the place where the bushes were originally turned into a ruin. Did Snape remember that place? He looked at Ivan in horror. Your disarming spell. What kind of exaggerated destructive power is this? Are you sure that what you just cast was just a disarming spell, not a blasting spell? And even if it was a blasting spell, isn't this power a bit too exaggerated? Professor, Ivan was still calm and collected. He raised his wand lightly. I think some things are better for you to experience in person. Boom! After the words fell, another red, disarming spell shot at Snape. And this time, Snape did not dodge. He also cast a disarming spell. Bang! In an instant, 2293 red lights collided in midair. The dazzling light, accompanied by the collision of magic, sparks flew. Snape's pupils shrank slightly. Almost at the moment when the wave was completed, he felt an unimaginable sense of oppression. Heavy, surging, unstoppable. How can this kid's magic be so strong? The power of magic is not the destructive power and power of magic. It is more like a qualitative change. Fighting with Ivan means that the magic of both sides will be connected in the form of spells. Then, it will be a pure magic competition. And fighting with Ivan, Professor, suppressed by Ivan, Hermione's eyes trembled slightly, and in her sight, the night was illuminated by red light, and the collision point that was originally located between the two was moving towards the direction of Kinipu at a very fast speed. Is this Ivan's strength? Hermione couldn't believe what was happening in front of her. She knew that Ivan was very powerful, but he was so powerful. Damn it, Snape finally understood what Dumbledore meant by it's hard to judge the outcome. This kid is simply a freak. How can he have such powerful magic at this age? Snape immediately disconnected the magic connection between the two parties. He waved his wand, and the trees around him seemed to come alive. The branches grew wildly, and the roots surged. What is this? Hermione had never seen such a magical scene, but she still subconsciously judged Snape's magic. Transfiguration? Can transfiguration reach this level? Don't underestimate our Hogwarts professors, Miss Granger. Dumbledore did not use the Elder Wand. The old man casually set up a circular barrier for himself and Hermione, not caring about the changes in the forest in front of him. Amazing transfiguration. Ivan praised from the bottom of his heart. He thought that the best transfiguration master in Hogwarts should be Professor McGonagall. Unexpectedly, Snape was not weak either. Even though there was still some gap between him and McGonagall, Snape's transfiguration attainments seemed to have reached that level, and he had the demeanor of a master. Flames are blazing. Ivan asked himself if he could use transfiguration to fight Snape. He pointed the wand forward, and raging flames appeared out of thin air, and in an instant, the prairie fire was set on fire. Endless flames surrounded Ivan as if they had life, burning all the roots and vines that came close to him. Stupid, Snape commented on Ivan's response. These roots and vines of his are still trees in essence. Only the form has changed. Choosing to burn with fire like Ivan did, the result is that he will be engulfed in flames. Experience gap? Ivan frowned slightly as the smoke billowed. He also found the problem of burning trees with fire. FFFLX. Suddenly, Ivan's eyes narrowed slightly. I want to fight with you. Every failure makes you wiser. Experience is earned through fighting. Vulcan opens the way. With a downward wave of the magic wand, the raging flames immediately separated in all directions, forming a fist-shaped, ring-shaped firewall. In the center of the firewall, on the scorched earth, Ivan and Snape stood opposite each other. This magic, Snape's mouth twitched slightly, and he felt that his 3 views were about to be overturned by Ivan. You can actually learn this magic. How is this possible? You know, even he couldn't master the spell of Vulcan opens the way. It's not that Vulcan opens the way is so complicated, but that this magic requires too much magic power. If Snape's magic power is digitized, it should be at the peak of 3 points, close to 4 points. 4 points is a watershed for magic attribute. To break through 4 points, except for the special pure blood of the Dumbledore family who inherited the blood of the Phoenix, you can only rely on magic transformation. And magic transformation is too dangerous. It is no exaggeration to say that wizards who try it are in danger of death. In terms of talent alone, Snape is actually no worse than Voldemort when he was young. It's just that Voldemort is much braver than Snape. He performed magic transformation more than once, and split his soul through Horcruxes, exchanging reason for magic power. And then he broke through the realm of the Great Wizard. But think about their ages. How old is Snape? 32. Severus Snape is only 32 years old this year. If he is given another 40 years, Snape may not be able to reach the height of Voldemort. You know, he is best at potions, and the key step of magic transformation is to make potions. Professor, now is not the time to sigh. Ivan pointed his wand to the sky and then drew an arc. The flames rolled, but seemed to have gained life. Under the traction of Ivan's magic, they were transformed into a huge firebird tens of meters high. The magic of Vulcan opening the way is not just as simple as letting the flames push away. As a spell with a magic power requirement of 4, Vulcan opening the way can perfectly control any flame except Fiend Fire. In addition, if Fiend Fire is cast by the caster, Vulcan opening the way can also reduce the difficulty of controlling Fiend Fire, making it easier to use. This is Ivan's power. Looking at the Firebird transformed by Ivan's condensed flames, Hermione couldn't help but tremble slightly. Excited, and happy. But more than that, it was a feeling of being touched by witnessing the birth of a legend. My little friend, is he so strong? At this moment, Hermione's admiration for Ivan reached its peak, and Ivan was the only one left in her eyes. Professor, show your true ability. Otherwise, Ivan's silver eyes glowed faintly, and he waved his wand, causing the earth to shake. The soil and rocks that were originally turned up by the tree roots began to gather, and after a while, a 7 or 8 meter tall stone giant stood in front of Ivan. You'll get hurt. As Ivan finished speaking, the stone giant punched Snape like the sky was falling and the earth was collapsing. Apparition was activated again, and Snape dodged the stone giant's attack with a gloomy face. What's wrong with this kid? There is no doubt that the stone giant is the product of transfiguration. Although it is crude, it is better than the flying bricks of the sky. The magic of transfiguration has no threshold. It will meet any of your needs according to the strength of your magic power. But the problem is such a big stone giant. How strong is his magic power? Is this kid really a wizard? In fact, Snape had already noticed this when Ivan cast the Vulcan to clear the way. But seeing Ivan casually transforming a 3-story stone giant still made Snape feel like his worldview collapsed. Waste of magic. Snape snorted disdainfully, but even Hermione could hear the sourness in his words. Before Hermione could complain, the stone giant standing in front of Ivan was split in half. Through the firelight, Hermione could clearly see the smoothness of the cut surface. Ivan frowned slightly. What happened just now? Danger! The sudden warning of danger made Ivan instinctively move sideways. However, he dodged, but the old tree behind him was split in half again. What happened? Hermione widened her eyes. She had no idea what was going on. Why was the stone giant cut in half? Why was the tree behind Ivan cut in half? God's sharp edge without a shadow. This strange scene reminded Ivan of the black magic created by Snape when he was a student, which was mentioned in the original book. It was invisible and intangible, without a trace, but extremely sharp. What a powerful black magic. Ivan marveled at Snape's genius again. This guy was not him. He did not have a gold finger like the point-adding system. Dodge! Snape was also surprised by Ivan's reaction. Just now he was going to chop off Ivan's hand. The shadowless divine sword has a counter curse. Even if Ivan's hand is really chopped off, it can be reattached afterwards. It's no big deal. Of course, if Ivan can't even bear this little pain, then Snape has nothing to say. It seems that I have been recognized by you, Professor. Ivan, how can I say that you use such dangerous black magic on me, my honor? Are you scared? F.O. Ivan smiled. On the contrary, I am very happy now, because this shows that you, Professor, no longer regard me as a little wizard who needs to be taken care of, but a wizard of equal status. 5.4, huh? Equal status. Snape felt that he was mocked by Ivan. A mere little wizard, even if he is extremely talented. So what? He was going to tell Ivan now. No matter how talented you are just a little wizard now. The magic just now is really dangerous. Ivan can see the magic aura, and the biggest advantage of the shadowless god cannot be used here. He can predict in advance and avoid the linear cutting. FFLX. We must take good protection. The earth shook again, and this time, even the surrounding trees and the roots of the underground trees began to roll and boil. Galala, the stone giant that was originally cut off by Snape, recovered quickly, and more stone giants and tree people began to stand up. They were tall and mighty, surrounding Snape and surrounding him. What fu? Snape suddenly didn't want to fight anymore. What kind of funny magic strength is this? At a glance, there are at least 5 transformed giants. For this kind of thing, if it were Snape, it would be a stretch to control too. Ivan, 5 at a time, and it seems that he has not reached the limit yet. That's it for now. Ivan waved his hand, and all the giants rushed towards Snape at the same time. After all, the opponent is a professor, 5 against 1. Don't blame me for being mean. Chapter 60. Silent, creepy magic stinky brat. Snape wanted to deduct 100 points from this arrogant brat. But facing the siege attack right in front of him, Snape had no time to say foul words. But he was not too nervous. The current situation might be a dead end for other wizards, but for him, flying up, Hermione, who was still immersed in the shock of Ivan transforming 5 giants at once, was completely stunned when she saw Snape throw his robes and turn into a black wind and soar into the sky. You know, there is no flying magic in the wizarding world. But what's going on? Snape can even do flying magic? It's really eye-opening, Professor. Ivan looked up at Snape, floating in the moonlight, and praised from the bottom of his heart. Is this the magic you created? What is the principle? He could see that this was not simply letting the black robe float to drive the flight, but a real flying magic. But how did Snape do it? Even with the magic eye and clairvoyance, Ivan couldn't see the essence of this magic for a while. There's a magical light in the body. Magic potion? Or magic transformation? He could only guess that this flying magic should be obtained by Snape through some incomplete magic transformation. The stone giants and tree people cannot fly in the air. Ivan maintained their state, but no longer controlled them to relieve mental pressure. He has not yet mastered the power to give the transformed things a soul. This made the giants become 5 dead things after Ivan relaxed his mind, and they could be defeated by Snape's magic at any time. Don't attack them? Ivan felt that Snape was a senior after all, and he would not be so shameless as to use the kite tactic. Of course, even if he really played like this, Ivan was not afraid. His magic power is as deep as the sea. Even if Snape smashed all the stone giants, Ivan would only need to wave his wand to repair them. Ivan, if you fight like this, I can spend a day with you. Oomph. On the other side, Snape obviously saw Ivan's preparation. He did not attack again, but he also did not intend to explain the secret of his flying spell to Ivan. He just wanted to ask Ivan one question now. If he could fly, how would Ivan deal with it? Boom! However, as soon as this thought came to mind, before Snape could taunt him, a dazzling magic beam had already rushed towards him. This kid, Snape subconsciously wanted to resist, and he did so. However, as soon as the 2 magic beams came into contact, Snape's side collapsed in an instant, without even a stalemate. Impossible! Snape quickly disconnected, and then quickly dodged like facing a firecracker whose fuse was about to burn out. The magic beam did not stop, but flew towards a small hill in the distance, according to its original trajectory. Snape glanced back, and then his pupils trembled. Boom! The hillside in the distance collapsed. Countless rocks and dirt scattered into the sky, leaving only a thunderous roar resounding through the sky. Snape, although. This kid, does he want to kill me? Snape never thought that magic could be so powerful that a magic beam could blow up a hillside. Damn, is this reasonable? Is he behind the times? Or is the outside world progressing too fast? Is he, Snape, only 32 years old, going to be eliminated by the new era? Professor, this is also because Hermione was also shocked. She looked at Dumbledore beside her. The old man was sighing leisurely. Well, fortunately, I had foresight and set the magic barrier a little larger. Otherwise, the magic bullet just now would probably crack the triple protective barrier he set up. Hermione didn't know where to start complaining. She was really glad that she could accept Ivan's invitation to come and watch this earth-shaking network master duel, although she didn't know how the level of other adult wizards compared to the two in front of her. But this didn't affect Hermione wanted to let go of her screaming heart. Ivan, Hermione, awesome. Huh. Snape took a deep breath and hated Dumbledore, who had Alzheimer's disease, even more. This old guy was clearly trying to trick him. The only thing Snape was thankful for was that it was only October now. Otherwise, if they flew so high, and the two fought for more than 10 minutes, Snape would have been frozen to death, even if he was not killed. Do you want to continue? The situation was clear now, and Snape recognized Ivan's strength. This kid was a freak. Unreasonably powerful magic, multiple spells, and multitasking transfiguration. Add to that the magic beam that could be used as a top blasting spell. Snape really couldn't imagine how he could defeat Ivan. Of course, the same is true in reverse. Ivan also took the flying Snape, had no choice. The latter looked down on her, as if he was already invincible. Del, as for warming up, it's almost done. Then what's next? Ivan put down his wand, and he looked at Dumbledore in the distance calmly. The old man felt something. He raised his hand and pressed it on the little witch's shoulder, and then smiled kindly at Ivan. Principal, Hermione was puzzled, but the clever little witch quickly guessed something. Is Ivan going to perform some powerful magic? She remembered that Ivan had said before that he would tell her his secret. He chose you, Miss Granger. Dumbledore, please remember that love is the most powerful magic in the world. What? Hermione was confused and seemed to have failed to get Dumbledore's train of thought. But this was not the time for her to be distracted by thinking about these things. Because in the center of the fire in the distance, Ivan suddenly exuded a terrifying aura. What is that? Hermione's throat rolled. She stared at Ivan and the black substance that kept flowing out of his body, which looked like mist and oil. With the little witch's knowledge, she naturally couldn't recognize what it was. But Snape was completely stunned. Impossible. This is... Snape looked at Ivan, who was gradually wrapped in black mist. He felt that all the hairs on his body stood up at this moment. It was an extreme horror of being targeted by a top predator. Obscura. Snape had never seen a real Obscurus, nor its host, the Obscura. Because decades before he entered school, the Obscura had already become extinct worldwide. The last recorded Obscura was more than 60 years ago. Are you the Obscura? Snape clearly remembered the records of the Obscurus and the Obscurus in the book. A young wizard with the Obscurus in his body will not live past the age of 10, let alone control this power freely like Ivan. Now, let's start the second half, Professor. Ivan raised his head, his eyes bright, as if he could absorb people's souls. It was different from the paleness of Credence, but the cold and noble silver moonlight, mysterious, deep, and dazzling, making people sink into it at a glance. In addition, I hope you cannot keep it, Professor. As he spoke, Ivan's body slowly floated up, and black mist entangled him, as if there were countless evil ghosts howling and wailing. BW, Ivan's eyes became more and more indifferent, and Snape felt cold in his heart. You will die. What does this feel like? At this moment, Hogwarts Professor McGonagall, who was wearing pajamas, got up quickly, came to the window, and looked at the forbidden forest in the distance. Because of Dumbledore's magic, McGonagall couldn't see what was happening inside the barrier from the outside. Magic! Professor McGonagall rubbed her arms, trying to warm her heart. What a terrible magic! It's creepy. Without hesitation, Professor McGonagall changed her clothes and rushed to the direction where the magic came from. Professors Flitwick and Sprout did the same thing. Professor Quirrell also sensed the magic of Ivan, who had turned into the Silent One. Voldemort, who was originally sleeping behind him, was awakened by it, and his blood-red eyes were full of disbelief. "Master, idiot, be quiet." Voldemort told his servant to shut up. He carefully sensed the fluctuations of magic, and his face became more gloomy. Who is it? This magic is so powerful that it is even more powerful than his heyday. Dumbledore? No, that's not right. The magic of a wizard is unique, and the wand chooses its master based on this. Dumbledore's magic is something Voldemort is very familiar with. So it definitely can't be Dumbledore. Although it's very vague, this magic seems to be fighting with someone. The magic that collides with it. Voldemort recognized this magic. Severus. Snape is fighting with the owner of this magic. Although he really wanted to see what happened, considering his current state, Voldemort could only choose to sleep again unwillingly. Before going to bed, Voldemort gave Quirrell an order. Find out who is fighting with Snape. This kind of magic that is completely condensed by negative emotions. Its owner is definitely not a good person. Perhaps they can still cooperate. Okay. Quirrell timidly said, "My master." Boom! The ground under Ivan began to run wild, and the trees were torn apart and turned into debris. There were also rocks, soil, and the 5 giants that Ivan had conjured before, all wrapped in the black fog and turned into its nutrients to strengthen itself. The dark tornadoes rose into the sky, 1, 2, 3. This scene was like a doomsday disaster. Even the triple protective barrier arranged by Dumbledore himself was shaking and had a tendency to collapse. What on earth is this? Hermione never thought that Ivan did not hide such a terrifying power in his body. The sky, the earth, the forest. In an instant, everything was swallowed up silently. In the endless darkness, the red lightning kept flowing, beating like blood vessels. Even the sky above the forbidden forest was covered by the Obscurus, forming a huge black and red vortex that kept spinning. Roar! Ivan stood high in the sky. He opened his arms, and the Obscurus behind him roared at Snape like a living creature. "Professor, take action. Any spell will do. Even the Killing Curse will do." The Killing Curse cannot be defended by the Armor Charm, but physical resistance is not a problem. Ivan's Obscurus absorbed a lot of matter, and if he gathered some of it, he could stop Avada from eating the melon. Unless Snape's magic power is so strong that a bite of the melon can penetrate all the defenses built by the Obscurus, break it up completely, and then hit Ivan's body. 723 otherwise. The Obscurus is the strongest barrier, protecting Ivan's absolute defense. Dumbledore, you old BCH. Snape only wants to do one thing now. That is to strangle the old BCH to death. As for fighting Ivan, the Obscure, what a joke. At this moment, Snape's instincts and the magic in his body were warning him to stay away from the monster in front of him immediately. Until now, Snape understood. The horror of the Obscure is completely different from what you read in books and what you see with your own eyes. This is no longer a force that 1 or 2 wizards can deal with. To deal with Ivan, who has completely liberated the Obscure, at least dozens or hundreds of elite wizards are needed, and then they will continue to attack him. What is Snape's ability? God of Swords. Snape threw a God of Swords at Ivan. But before God of Swords could get close to Ivan, he was blocked by the surging black fog at a distance of dozens of meters. When the two collided, God of Swords disappeared like mud flowing into the sea. This scene made Snape's face darken even more. Dumbledore, you lied to me. Trick. This is definitely a trick of the old man. Dumbledore not only broke his promise, but also leaked his dark history casually. Now he brought Ivan to beat him. I obviously trusted you so much, Dumbledore. Snape was extremely sad. The pain of this betrayal will never heal. What happened here? What is that? Just when Snape was beaten by Ivan and ran away, McGonagall and the other two hurriedly arrived. As soon as they arrived, the three noticed the transparent barrier emitting a faint light, and the two figures of one large and one small not far away. Albus! Seeing Dumbledore here, McGonagall and the others subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. But after seeing Hermione, McGonagall's heart was lifted again. What is going on? McGonagall, why is Miss Granger here? And Albus, shouldn't you give us an explanation? Don't be nervous, Minerva. And Pomona and Phileas, I'm sorry for disturbing you. Dumbledore's careless attitude really made people angry, and Professor Sprout, who is always good-tempered, couldn't help it. Is this a question of whether to quarrel or not? If you don't know, you might think Voldemort invaded Hogwarts. Professor, it's Professor Snape and Ivan. There was no way. And in the end, it was Hermione's turn to explain to the three deans. When they heard that Ivan actually challenged Snape to a duel, the three looked weird, and they felt like they had heard it wrong. Chapter 61, McGonagall. Should I find a way to make progress? Ooh, Flitwick felt like he hadn't woken up yet. Professor Snape? And little Ivan? Boom! But before the three of them could doubt, the darkness above the forest had already completed its final contraction. It seems that the winner has been decided. Dumbledore waved the old wand, and a magic power enveloped the forest. The slope blown up by Ivan, and the messy land, all the damage caused by the two people's competition, were all restored to their original positions under Dumbledore's repair spell. Awesome, is this still a repair spell? Hermione was shocked by Dumbledore's magical attainments. The scene in front of her was like a time travel, which was no less than the previous battle. You are worthy of it, Principal Dumbledore. Ivan's voice came from above everyone's head. They looked up and saw Ivan riding the black and red storm that was constantly expanding and compressing, floating down. Severus, don't worry, the professor is fine. Ivan raised his hand slightly, and the black mist behind him immediately dissipated and put Snape, who was tied like a chain, on the ground. What happened in front of them made the three deans dumbfounded. What happened? Snape defeated? No. Flitwick stepped forward. He was a little uncertain. What is this? Little Ivan, you are the obscure? Merlin's beard. Professor Sprout took a breath, and McGonagall ignored the black mist and went forward to check Ivan's physical condition. Snape was a little messy in the wind. His clothes looked torn, but no one paid attention to him, which made Snape look very ugly. Child, are you okay? McGonagall looked at Ivan carefully, watching him take the obscure into his body, and exclaimed, You are controlling it. She looked at Dumbledore, as if thinking of a young man in the past. Decades ago, when Professor McGonagall was still an employee of the Ministry of Magic, she had seen Credence in the Hog's Head. But at that time, Credence was already dying. He was emaciated and dying. Thinking of this, McGonagall became more worried about Ivan. Compared with the powerful power of the Obscurus, McGonagall was more concerned about Ivan's body. She didn't want this child she brought out of the orphanage to lose his life in a humble way. And the Obscurus, even if they had never seen it, they knew the conditions for the birth of the Obscurus. Poor child. Professor Sprout had tears in his eyes and felt sorry for Ivan's childhood. You must have suffered a lot in the past. Albus, you need to think of a way he is still so mean. Flitwick focused his attention on Dumbledore, the greatest white wizard in the world. He had to do something worthy of his reputation. Oh, my deans! Dumbledore was actually very relieved. He believed that they would not discriminate against Ivan because of his identity as Silent. But when he really saw it, even Ivan was shocked. The professors at Hogwarts are really good teachers. Well, except for the defense against the dark arts class. Thank you, Professor, but my health is still good for the time being, and there is no problem. Ivan's words made Hermione very puzzled. She interrupted, Sorry, what do you say, Professor? It seems that Ivan is about to die? Hermione didn't say the rest, but McGonagall and others gave her that feeling. It was as if Ivan was about to die. It seems that our Miss Know-It-All doesn't know everything. Snape repaired his clothes and cleaned them up, leaving only the greasy black hair, showing his last stubbornness. What? Isn't obscurial? Snape would not discriminate against Ivan either. To be honest, as a teacher, Snape also sympathized with Ivan in his heart. If he could help him, Snape would not refuse. It's just that obscurial and obscurial. This has been a dead end in the wizarding world for thousands of years, and no one has ever been able to break this curse. When a wizard child is forced to suppress his magic due to physical or psychological abuse, they will have extremely painful emotions emotionally, thus creating a dark parasitic magic power called obscurial. McGonagall explained, but since the establishment of magic schools, the magic power of young wizards has been vented, so the obscurials are almost extinct in the wizarding world. McGonagall, Ivan is the second obscurial I have met in my life. Obscuriated people usually don't live past 10 years old. Then, Snape's words made Hermione feel dizzy. It's a miracle that he can live until now and master the obscurials in his body. Upon hearing such bad news, the little girl burst into tears. Woo woo woo, Ivan, you don't die. We agreed to stay together forever. What should I do without you? Ivan obviously didn't expect Hermione's reaction to be so intense. Looking at the little witch who threw herself into his arms with tears on her face, he suddenly felt a headache. Swallow, don't leave. Swallow, how can I live without you? Inexplicably, a famous scene from his previous life floated through Ivan's mind. Don't worry, Hermione. Ivan patted the little witch's head and smiled. My situation is not as bad as the professors said. The Obscurus is indeed a sword of Damocles hanging over Ivan's head, but it is also an important self-protection force for Ivan. Just like just now, Ivan could easily defeat Snape without using the trump card of the Phoenix Spirit sleeping in the Sycamore Wand. The trend of a normal battle took a sharp turn for the worse from the appearance of the Obscurus, which could be called a crushing defeat. No matter what spell Snape cast, Ivan only needed to think about it, and the Obscurus, who was connected to his mind, would automatically attack and defend. Facing the storm transformed by the Obscurus, Snape had no way. His spells could not penetrate, and he had to face the overwhelming black and red wind. As long as he was touched, it would be fatal. Just think about it. You can know how easy it would be for the Obscurus to crush the rock houses and the earth and tear apart a flesh and blood body. Of course, this is also because Snape did not use his full strength. After all, Snape is best at black magic. It's just that black magic is too dangerous. Snape is no longer the Death Eater he once was. He can't be so harsh on his students. Well, Snape comforted himself. That's right, it's not that I can't beat him, I just don't want to hurt my students. Snape will never admit that even if he uses black magic, he can only rely on Fiend Fire to break the situation. Once Fiend Fire is broken by Ivan, he will be completely trapped in a deadlock waiting for death. Cherish the present, Miss Know-It-All. Even if he can't beat him, Snape has always been strong. Even at this time, he has to show the poisonous tongue of the strongest king. Although it's short, at least this is a happy time, isn't it? It's really okay. Hermione was frightened by Snape. When she thought that Ivan would die early, the little witch felt cold in her hands and feet. It's okay. The professor was joking with you. Ivan comforted the little witch. Was Snape just joking? This is a joke, right? I will always be with you, Hermione. Ivan knew that Hermione did not become alienated because of her identity as an Obscurial. Snape had made it very clear. Obscurials are very dangerous. Once out of control, they will have immeasurable consequences for the people around them. But Hermione didn't care. Hermione only knew that Ivan was her best friend. Watching Ivan and Hermione being affectionate with each other, Snape was in a trance, as if he saw himself and Lily. Once upon a time, they were like this, childhood sweethearts, innocent, until the damn Potter appeared. Damn Harry! Snape woke up instantly and gnashed his teeth in his heart. Evil Potter, evil shampoo. Are you old and confused, Dumbledore? Snape did not hide his targeting of Ivan, but his words were impeccable. Let an obscure stay in the school, surrounded by a group of little wizards. Do you know what this means? The three deans were also silent at this moment. They wanted to speak for Ivan, but what was the price? Ivan was very pitiful, at least in the eyes of the professors. This was a child who needed their love and care. But other little wizards were also their most important students and children. Ivan, Hermione was a little scared. She was worried that the professors would drive Ivan away from Hogwarts because of his identity. At the same time, Hermione completely understood what Ivan meant by what he said before. The obscure, the dark creature that seemed to be able to destroy the world, was inhabited by the body. Ivan must be worried that I would be afraid of him after I knew it. Hermione felt that Ivan looked down on her. I'm not afraid of the obscurus. Ivan was her best friend. He trusted her so much that he even told her such a secret thing as the obscurus. Thinking of this, Hermione held Ivan's hand tighter. Severus. Dumbledore was still so calm, as if nothing in the world could stump him. I know that you have always been resentful because of Remus John, Professor Lupin. Dumbledore. As for little Ivan, I will check him regularly to make sure he can control this power. The obscurus is different from the werewolf virus, which will make people lose their minds and spread to more people. But as long as the obscurus remains stable, nothing will happen. At least the obscurus recorded are cowardly, inferior, and eager to be recognized and loved. Ariana, Credence. Unless they are forced to lose control of their emotions, they will not take the initiative to hurt others. In other words, unless there is a drastic change, Ivan is actually quite stable. TFFLX. Dumbledore did not finish his words, but said tactfully, "How about we give little Ivan some time? Let Ivan continue to stay in Hogwarts, witnessed by the 4 deans. If his condition has been stable, it proves that Ivan is safe and he will not hurt anyone. On the contrary, once the obscurus in Ivan's body has any reaction, stay in Hogwarts. The professors can also treat him in the first time to relieve Ivan's pain." Dumbledore's reason is that Snape can't find any fault with it. The 3 deans were relieved, and then they thought about how to help Ivan. Of course, the problem of Momo Ran is not solved overnight. In looking at Ivan's situation, it seems that it will take a long time before it is out of control. "And I will help you, Ivan." The little witch almost stuck to Ivan. But how could Ivan refuse the sweet and soft little lowly? There is no need to worry so much. Ivan told everyone the scene he had predicted. I saw myself attending the 4th grade dance. The prediction is bound to happen. McGonagall said, since little Ivan was able to attend the dance in the 4th grade, it means that little Ivan's condition is very stable in the next 4 years. However, when it comes to this, Professor Cat is a little confused again. Wait a minute. McGonagall, dance? Why does Hogwarts hold a dance? According to the plot of the original book, the 4th grade will hold the Goblet of Fire Triwizard Tournament, and the Christmas dance is a traditional event of the Triwizard Tournament. Ivan can see the 4th grade dance, which means that the Goblet of Fire will be held as scheduled like the original book. Do we watch this event at Hogwarts? Oh my God! McGonagall has worked at Hogwarts for so many years. How come she doesn't know that there is such an event at Hogwarts? Ivan scratched his head and smiled. I don't know about that. Perhaps you can ask Principal Dumbledore? Albus. Professor McGonagall's eyes became more and more unfriendly, and she understood. What happened tonight, Ivan's duel with Snape, and Ivan's identity as an obscure. Dumbledore seemed to have known all this for a long time. However, this old BCH obviously knows everything, but he just hides it from them. 1 month after the start of school, he didn't reveal any clues. Okay, McGonagall, am I the vice principal? Just a decoration. Ivan is such a big thing as an obscure, but she doesn't even have the qualifications to know. Or Dumbledore thought she would discriminate against Ivan and even drive him away? Is she such an unreasonable and heartless person? For so many years, I, McGonagall, have worked hard for Hogwarts. But in the end, I didn't expect it, Dumbledore, you old crooked-nosed thing. Really didn't treat her as your own. McGonagall, the grief in my heart will never heal. Snape, meet a minister. Ahem. Seeing the 4 deans, as well as Ivan and Hermione looking at him, Dumbledore could only smile awkwardly. I think the future should always be a little mysterious. If you know everything, you will lose your expectations. You said, right? Well, Dumbledore didn't know why there was a Christmas ball in the 4th grade. Dumbledore, you must have Alzheimer's disease. Professor Cat had an unrealistic fantasy in her heart. Should she find an opportunity to make progress? Chapter 62, A world where only Quirrell is hurt. The duel with Snape came to an end, and Ivan's strength was only circulated among several deans. There was no need to doubt the character of the professors. Even Snape never leaked a word. Hermione,
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on EuroAudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.